The Indie Council is in session. Welcome, everyone. This is a place for the leading voices from across the industry to gather to talk news, titles, and everything indie. I'm your master of ceremonies, Jill Grote, the Indie Informer. And today, we have an entire full session. Council is all here. Yay, we made it. It feels like it's been forever. How long has it been since all of us were here?
34 years. It's wild, man.
Yeah, I believe it. Joining the council, the shot heard round the internet, Jenny Wyndham.
Oh, dang, I forgot to tweet about that. This is my reminder.
If y'all haven't seen the last episode, Jenny Wyndham started a war in our group. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, to have to tell you this.
Damn. I missed the war? That sucks.
The war is started.
Damn.
Don't worry,
we're behind. And Jenny Wyndham's out there running, so, you know, we're just I don't know. If Jenny Wyndham were to go to war with anyone, I don't think the opposing person would win.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm also noticing I'll introduce you first. Definitely not trying to get a skeleton through TSA, Mike Towndrow.
Hi.
Hello, Mike. I'm noticing your curtains in the background moving, and my first thought was like, oh, it's a ghost, of course. But no, it's probably your two creatures.
Yeah, it's my two creatures that I've brought into my loving home, and they're now raising terror and causing me to not sleep past 5 a.m. every day.
Oh, they're so cute.
They're the best. No, they're the best.
They're
I'll give up.
friends.
They're brother and sister.
Are they actual brother and sister?
I know, it doesn't look like it, but they are.
I love that.
Hey, I wasn't going to say anything. I was going to judge, judgment free zone. It's like, hey.
Makes sense.
We all got here somehow. You know what I mean?
That's true. They'll make an appearance at some point.
Yeah, hopefully. They'll just jump in and out.
I hear the little bell.
Like, I
in the
hear their
background.
collars or something.
Yeah, Bree
Or,
is
like, the
going
toy.
out of their mind right now.
Okay, of the two, who's the favorite right now?
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
Don't give me that
start.
Don't give me that BS.
No.
Oh, I love
Which
everybody
one,
equally.
Which one
you
is
the
the
most?
cuddler and which one is
Okay.
like the chaos gremlin?
Bats, the little boy, he is the cuddler. He will
Okay.
just get up on your chest. He'll sit on my shoulder at some point during this podcast. Bree, an independent lady.
Love that.
Good.
Snuggles when she wants to. She'll get pet when she wants to. She's a little chaos bringer. She is currently batting around a little wooden ball. There's an Amazon box back here that she really likes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just keeping Amazon boxes
They
now.
go wild for the
Good.
Amazon
Oh,
box.
Yeah.
dude, they're
Cats love Bezos.
Love
It's like their
'em.
worst
Love
quality.
Bezos.
I know.
They love consumerism.
They're a 10.
Speaking of chaos bringers, ensnaring people into listening to the entire Chicory soundtrack, Janet Garcia. Hi, Janet.
Hello. I'm here to do my service to the community. Yeah, it's a great soundtrack. Great game.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, like, the devil's work, essentially. And I'm like, okay,
I
if
thought
that's
about
where
it,
you want
but
to go.
I'm a freelancer, so I kind of work for whoever is
Yeah,
paying.
whoever's paying. And, good contracts down that way.
It's like the
Who's paying?
what was it from? Freaking Rick and Morty. At least the devil has a job. At least he's active in the community. Before that community went south. So, sometimes we can't have nice things. But before it got really toxic, it was just a fun time, and I miss those days.
That's where we are. And moving on to indie news and fun times, we had some really cool sudden announcements. And I don't know, maybe y'all can jump in here and call me crazy, but
You're crazy.
I don't know if it's happening more, if I'm just noticing it more, but it feels like increasingly indie games that are high profile are just shouting out things. Like, they're not waiting for events to be happening. They're not waiting for a special time or special drops or having an outlet do it. Because I remember, maybe that's because of my biases, but I'm always like, oh, you had to wait for an outlet. You had to go and talk to someone to have that news pop out. And now it's just social media. Here's the announcement. Like, am I wild? Is that happening more and more?
I think June
Yeah.
proved that, like, you should get away from the noise, right? Like,
Yeah.
why compete for bandwidth? Pick a good day. Pray that AAA doesn't have anything to say. Pray there's no layoffs on the horizon. Bungie.
Yeah.
And just, like you wrote on here, Sacred Deer Inn, random demo drop, Crypt Custodian, release date.
Scarlet.
Let's go.
Mhm.
Scarlet, There it is.
That one too.
Sacred
You know?
deer. It's a scarlet deer.
I
Yeah, I
can't
think
read. That's
too-
why I play video games.
You know, in a non-shade way, because there's nothing wrong with like, you know, we all have to make those coverage decisions. Even if you know, Jill, you talk about that all the time. You exclusively cover indies, and you still like can't get to all of them. So inherently, we're all playing the game of what are we going to cover, whether it's us as individuals, us as teams. And I think trying to go for like an outlet angle is just, you know, you're kind of not at odds, but you might be at odds with like their coverage plans. Like Jill, for instance, you do mostly like it's a lot of features, lots of reviews. You do some new stuff, but it's not like inundated with news. So it's like you might not, you know, launch something like that if you were approached. And even if you were, it's like, what do they want out of the deal? And then if you want something that's more of a like sponsored thing, that's cool, but you got to pay, and usually got to pay kind of a lot. And then like that doesn't go as far as like versus if people just like your stuff, they'll put it up and it's kind of the best of everything, right? Like the outlet gets to highlight content that they think is valuable and exciting to their readers, their viewers on social or whatever. Like I think of because the Scarlet Deer Inn, let me try to remember. Yeah, this is the one that's like embroidered, right?
Embroidered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like for instance, like I know IGN like had posted, I'm pretty sure IGN had posted like a GIF, a video of telling the story, like briefly like being like, hey, this is what this game's about. Look, isn't this interesting? That's all embroidered. Like I'm sure that was like really exciting for them to see, like coverage from like such a big place, and it like cascades, right? A lot of other outlets probably are like, oh yeah, let me check this out, and it all kind of works in favor versus the odds of like a medium to large size outlet kind of announcing your stuff. It's like I think that is, you know, kind of to your point, the way of old, you know, and now things just work a little bit differently. And then also, you know, you have limited resources of money. So like, does a team want to spend a bunch of money hitting up an outlet and kind of having a lack of control inherently in how it is presented, how it goes about, the reach and all of that? Or do they want to just kind of shoot their shot into the void? And if the streets hype it up enough, the outlets will also pay attention. And it's this great cycle that they can get to benefit from.
Yeah, I think a lot of these games that we see doing these drops of like, hey, there's a demo drop, here's our release date drop. I find also are titles that either have already had significant coverage and social media hype, like the embroidery game. We've seen it on Twitter. I've seen it all over TikTok, on my feeds at least. Like this is a game that's gotten coverage and already has a pretty substantial community, probably a decent amount of wish lists. Same with Crypt Custodian. This is not the devs. Kyle's, I believe is his name. Kyle's first rodeo. Kyle already has released a game, has a community, has that base from which to draw from. And in many cases, I feel like it's perhaps more beneficial to do that grassroots. Hey, I'm going to make my community be the first to know. They're going to hype it up on social. I know my game does well on social because these are also both very visually good looking games. Like these are social media games where when you see it in movement, you're going to want to like it. You're going to want to engage with it. And so I think especially for these kind of indies, I've been seeing more of that because it just works to their advantage much more than perhaps just like a trailer and IGN where their community might not even necessarily be engaging.
Yeah. Even though, as Janet pointed out, Scarlet Deer Inn did have a wildfire moment last year where like everyone was picking it up.
Yep.
And to speak a little bit too about the behind the scenes and like people reaching out. Like I did get this actual news from that studio. And as Janet pointed out also, I didn't write the news up on my site because I don't typically do news on my site because I find it so much more time efficient and equally popular, equally views getting, to just share that post in my spaces and to share it on social media. So I am wondering how, I know that for outlets, news is the big like thing that gets people coming in every day because people are going to click on a big headline. And you can't be constant, like news is a fairly short turnaround thing. You can't constantly be writing like 50 pages of a feature or something and doing interviews and all of that jazz. But yeah, no, it's really cool to see indies being able to cut out a lot of the costs that comes along. And not necessarily, I want to point this out, the cost is not, you don't pay journalists to put your stuff out there, just so everybody knows, unless you're like paying for someone to sponsor you or something.
Like a spot if any money goes into a website, well, when it's handled by kind of a different department within the website, it's like I forgot the name of it, but it's like God, there's a name for it, but it's like the it's just like the business side of things, like the who
Yeah.
sells like ad space. First of
Ad
all, you go through
space,
them, it
yeah.
doesn't touch like any of the editorial side, and then it's also clearly labeled. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's so funny how a lot of this works out, because it is a lot of, I'm giving you this for free so that you can do this for free, so that we're both sort of symbiotically helping each other out. It's such a weird it's such a weird industry, really. Uh Mike, from the marketing side of things, have you ever just suggested to people, clients or whatever, that this should just be a social media post, essentially?
Yeah, it goes into there's a couple kind of factors that play into that. So it's kind of an interesting topic right now because we're leading into Gamescom season and PAX West
Mhm.
season and Tokyo Game Show season. Um let's say, for example, if we couldn't get a game into like Future Game Show, Opening Night Live, maybe a stage show on the show floor, probably best to attempt to push that. And they really want to announce in August, try to push it ahead of time just to get out of the way of all the Gamescom noise, depending on what the content is. So if it's a game announcement, that deserves like a proper press release, PR outreach, the whole 9 yards. If it's something like, I don't know, let's say an update for a game, maybe you're announcing like some details about a physical edition, whatever it may be, depending on what the detail is. Like, we always want to find that balance of treating our media friends with care, and we don't want to annoy people, because when you start annoying
Mhm.
people, that's when you get the unsubscribe button, and you want to avoid getting that unsubscribe hit as much as humanly possible, especially when, like, it's an editor or viewer or previewer, whoever it may be, is your target audience, and they're going to really enjoy that game. So like, there are clients that want to make sure that like every single little detail is getting out to media. But yeah, you have to really practice that balance of not pissing people off and annoying people, because obviously we all know we all get hundreds of emails a week, and it gets quite overwhelming. And if you see something that maybe you covered before, like let's say Jill, for example, covered a release date announcement, but then the following week I shared details about a demo being live, for example, maybe Jill's not going to cover the demo being live, or she does cover the release date and the demo, and I want her to cover the launch. Maybe she won't cover the launch because she'll just answer me and be like, hey, I actually covered it last week, I got to move on to the next thing. So it's kind of
Mhm.
picking and choosing your battles. So
Yep.
that's where social media really comes into play. With Kyle, for example, Crypt Custodian, that's an interesting situation. I'm surprised. I mean, maybe you guys correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not on it's Coffee Stain doing publishing for them now? Top Hat,
I
right?
think it's Top
I think
Hat.
it's Top Hat, yeah.
I don't believe I'm on the Top Hat list. Top Hat, Mr. Top Hat, please add me. I don't know if they did like a full blown press outreach for that. So like a release date announcement for personally something I think is going to be one of the standouts of the year seems like a interesting choice to just have it stick with social media. Clearly it did well.
I think
It's a
they
great time.
definitely they did send out some
Mhm.
stuff.
They did.
They
Okay.
did.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was from Top Hat.
It was
Wow.
Funnily enough, via
Mr. Top
Press
Hat.
Engine, which like
yes.
I actually,
That's
it's
another
funny,
thing,
Jenny, you had mentioned like the ways to find it, in the previous episode, and you mentioned Press Engine, and I just kind of like let it fly by. But I was thinking to myself, funnily enough, that's like the only one I wasn't on. Like I didn't get on Press Engine until like a week ago. Like with some specific
Yeah.
game I think a PR like agency or something, like a list I was on, they're like, hey, we're doing all our things in Press Engine now. So like we still
Mhm.
got you, but like set up this Press Engine. And I was like, all right. Like I just so I don't know. It ended up working out. But yeah, they're also getting published by themselves and also H2 Interactive Company
Okay.
a little
Oh,
bit.
cool.
So it's like a trifecta. It's a triforce of publishing for
Yes.
Kyle.
I'm sure that was a fun road to walk down, and it is actually coming out August 27th. Very excited to check that out.
Big PSA. If you haven't played Islets yet, please play
Oh, so
Islets.
fun.
It's
Yeah,
so
go.
damn. I think it's seriously one of the most innovative Metroidvanias of the past decade. That's indie and AAA, like just across the board.
Yeah. I would also like to point out that everybody who used an example used me as an example, and I don't know what that means.
Because your mom.
Yeah, the nucleus, you know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I am the nucleus. The power. Oh, what is it? Mitochondria.
That's the mitochondria. Yeah. Well, you're not
Yeah.
a scientist, clearly. Face it.
Clearly. Also talking about continuing things that are showing off indie games. Day of the Devs is now presenting Fantastic Games 2024. Now, I'm actually going to leave this up to Mike because it seems to me like he has something to say. So let's go.
So Alamo Drafthouse every year does this thing called Fantastic Fest down in Austin. It is a film festival a la, Tribeca, Sundance, all that kind of stuff, except they really show off some typically gnarly horror stuff. Like that's where a lot of things like I think Longlegs got shown there back in the day, The Witch, like some of these more prestige indie horror on the film side of things. There is no better match that is Alamo Drafthouse / Fantastic Fest and Day of the Devs. Like what Day of the Devs has always presented themselves on the indie side of things, on the gaming side of things, completely matches that vibe. And even Day of the Devs in previous years, at least like when they first started off, they always hosted it at the SF Alamo Drafthouse, which was a fun connection. So obviously they had those contacts already. So it just seems like the perfect marriage that was like kind of bound to happen. It was like an obvious partnership that should have been happening. The fact that it's happening now, it's like, it's perfect. And horror, and this is something we always talk about in 6-1 and on the showcases themselves, and it's a reason why we always have like a really gnarly horror segment during the showcase. Like indie horror is where like that innovation lies. Like there's no rules with indie horror. It could be funny, it could be goofy, it could be horrifying and gruesome and terrifying. It is such a wide spectrum of taste and likeness and just genre as a whole that I'm so glad that folks like Alamo Drafthouse and Day of the Devs get to really shine like a major spotlight on those things. And I feel like similar to like going to the topic of the show a little bit, like El Paso Elser with Lakeith, like indie horror in particular, I think is so ripe for the picking when it comes to the film side of things. And like getting that like artistic Jesus.
Artistic. No, that's a word now.
The next
I'm
level.
I meant to say artiste, but then it didn't make sense. So artistic appeal to like some of these more, prestigious film heads out there.
Yeah. And just to give a little bit of detail, this is from Variety. It says, dubbed Fantastic Games, the inaugural showcase will run September 20 to 22nd during Fantastic Fest 2024 in Austin and features 12 incredible horror games. This is in quotations. 12 incredible horror games that all festival attendees can play, some of which will be playable for the first time ever. What do we think is going to be here? Because they're still accepting submissions up until I think August the 5th. September is still farther away. Next month is August. So not too long, and they're accepting anything in the horror, fantasy, sci-fi, and action genres. So it's not necessarily explicitly horror, but it'll probably end up being pretty horror heavy. What do we think is going to show up at this?
What's the one that we all played? I don't know if they have like, if they're locked in on anybody specifically like doing their PR stuff.
Yeah, that was Fear the Spotlight, I believe.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Blumhouse stuff is going to show.
I think
here.
I think Blumhouse, Blumhouse is one of the sponsors also. So some of the Blumhouse stuff will be there. So
okay,
probably I wonder what's next on whatever's next on the list, I guess, in production. So I don't think it's gonna be Sam Barlow's game.
Right. That's sort of what I was asking.
I mean, that's honestly like
Barlow's
that's the logical answer. Like maybe it is ready. Maybe there is
That
like a
would be
vertical slice, which would be gnarly. Like what a fantastic kind of first blow impact for the inaugural kind of like
That's the name of the thing.
first Sam Barlow.
I also, if it's not,
I know it's all right.
I think the Blumhouse game, I can't remember what it was called, and I need to look it up. The like cozy.
Eyeless? Oh, the cozy one. Yeah, I was thinking the one from the guitarist from Nine Inch Nails and the former director of Spec Ops: The Line. I forgot the name of it.
As everyone knows, it's that game
It's
that
that
we're
game.
all currently trying to like Google at this
The
moment.
studio name is I something. and I'm very excited
It's
for it.
gonna be like a J, and you're gonna be like, well, it's close enough.
No, like
Blumhouse.
I as in what you see with.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm trying to look this up.
While you're looking, I think either one of those seems like a good fit. Obviously, Day of the Devs is more. It feels always more on like the games as art side of things. Like they really
Yeah.
seem like those are the games they try to represent and really push that that fact forward. And they're always they do a fantastic job at that. And I think Alamo Drafthouse will want to kind of carry that messaging forward to a lot of the film critic crowd as well. That's going to be in attendance. So I'm curious if like similar to what like South by Southwest is, like I'm curious if this is just like Fantastic Fest, you get your media badge and it's one whole encompassing thing where you could go see films, you go play some of the games, or if it's like a South by Southwest where there's a film badge, there's a games badge. It sounds like it's gonna be one thing.
I think just
It
one
does
thing.
sound like
Which
I
I
think it sounds
that's
like they
the
want
way
to
to
drum
do
up.
it.
Yeah.
Like
So-
drum up people playing that maybe. Oh, I normally just do the film thing, but let
Yeah.
me like dip in
Check that
and
out.
check it out. Yeah.
I think for Blumhouse, we've got Fear the Spotlight, Crystal, the Theater of Idols, Grave Seasons, which is the one I was thinking of, Project C, Sleep Awake, and the
Sleep
Simulation.
Sleep Awake is the one I'm thinking
Okay.
of.
This one's a long shot, but there was Dark Web Streamer. I don't know if y'all have been following that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
yeah.
any sort of release date, but I would like that's something I could see fitting the vibes of it. For folks who aren't familiar, it's like a psychological horror game where you're sort of simulating being a streamer on the dark web, but then I'm assuming horror happens and it's something bad and
Can
scary
confirm.
Horror
happens.
happens.
Yeah. But that just looks really good. And I'd love to see something like that there.
Do y'all think it being at Day of the Devs previously like is a point for or against it being at something like this? Because I know they had it at SGF's Day of the Devs, or whatever
Oh,
they
did
call
they?
it. I forgot what the season.
Mm.
Yeah, it was in the hallway. Like you know they had that hallway
Oh
like,
yes,
in
yes,
between.
yes. I
Yeah,
do remember that. That was
that like led to outside. Anyway, this is the layout. Isn't
No,
important.
you're right.
Though
I
there is a
remember
little
this.
bit of like 4D
I-
chess with like where they place the games, and I forget like what the
Yeah.
hallway meant.
Dark Web Streamer?
Dark Web
Yeah.
Streamer was at
It wasn't that far from what's that game that's like trippy as hell looking? It's like almost like clay. Like my colleague
Oh,
Leo
no, I
and
know
his
what you're
friend.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his friend makes that game, and I'm trying to think. Oh, the Dome King Cabbage. It
Oh,
was not
yeah,
that far
yeah.
from Dome
God,
King
Dome
Cabbage.
King's Cabbage. Is
Mhm.
Y'all are talking about something different, not at SGF. It was at a different event that I was not at.
no, not
Yeah, but
SGF. It was
correct,
at
but it was Day of the Devs, like, right
Devs.
during that. Oh no, during GDC. Sorry, I messed
Yeah,
up. Yeah,
yeah,
not
it
Day
was
of the Devs.
GDC. It was
It was
GDC.
GDC time.
Jesus.
Yeah, never mind.
I was about to say, how did I miss that?
I guess you just don't like games as much as we do.
Yeah, fair.
No.
Like,
I
I'm, like,
wonder
big fan.
it may impact like if they have the same demo, it may not come back because I know like at least from my experience like curating different events and
Mhm.
showcases, it's like you want to try and have something different and new.
You
And
try to mix it
so
up.
yeah, I think if they had something different to show, that may be more of a point in its favor. If it ends up being like, oh, we have the same demo, we want to come again, it may not. But physical events are also different because it's like
Yeah.
such a limited amount of people get to experience it, and this is a bit more public versus like I think some of the more industry
Yeah.
like game centric events. So I don't know.
And it was also at it was one of the Tribeca selections as well. I'm
Yeah.
curious
Oh
if
yeah,
that
that's right. That's
will-
true. They do have a question on the application where it's like, has your game been showcased in the last 6 months? So I think with that, it feels like they're trying to make sure they're giving space to games that maybe haven't had a ton of promotion.
and like piggybacking off what
makes
Jenny
sense.
was just saying, like with like our show, for example, we have a similar question on our application. Like we
Mhm.
tend to lean more towards games that haven't had that chance yet. So I have a feeling the Day of the Devs crew is kind of like that as well. So yeah, maybe with Dark Web being at Tribeca, it might count it out. Fantastic Fest this year has a carnival theme. Blumhouse's other game, the Crystal Theater game, that if it's ready and they want to fit into the theme, that could be also a good pull.
Mhm.
That's fun. Tiny Build had their like one of their booths set up like that like a few
They did.
patches ago.
I remember that. Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
And then it's funny because Potion Craft just did their own thing. They're like, we're doing our own project. It's like, all right, like I guess like they had like a totally different theme. I don't think it would. Well, it's not that I don't think it would show up, but it is like I feel like less known game, but also they're kind of like looking for that. I would just try to look at my list of stuff that's coming up, but that doesn't have a date. Journey Beyond the Edge of the World would be, I think, a really cool one. It's an
Mhm.
atmospheric first-person adventure game that kind of has like this retro style and like exploration and puzzle solving. And I think specifically its mention of using unique 3D audio mechanics could really hit. And obviously when you're at a live event, it's like the audio gets a little messy in general, but if that's maybe their secret sauce to creating like, you know, spooky vibes, and it seems like they do want a breadth of experiences because they are, and for all I know maybe they're just doing a horror leaning, but they're leaving that genre a little bit more open just in case they like don't get as many submissions as they maybe would want within that niche. But I think this is like a fun in between, and I think this is like boat time right now in games because we just had like, what's that one game? Oh god, it's like there was like a monster and it's like
We should
You-
just be
you gotta
playing
give
indie
us more.
charade.
no,
know.
come on. I know you guys know this game.
Okay,
Like a lot of people
monster.
liked it, but I'm like, it kind of like felt, it had like stealth mechanics.
Oh,
and people
the
either
oil
love it or
rig
they hate
one?
it. Yes.
Oh,
Like,
Still
everybody
Still
goes
Wakes
to
the
the
Deep.
people. Still Wakes the Deep. Like the sea is trending. It's time to take to the seas.
It is
You know,
trendy.
this is basically I'm forgetting every name of every game ever. The Obra Dinn mixed with Still Wakes the Deep. That's how I would sell this. To get
Okay,
it.
okay.
I have a big one. If it's
Also, I don't work in marketing, but
fair. A big one. If it somehow has a vertical slice ready, is Pony Island 2.
Oh, that would be good.
yeah, that would be wild. I feel like that's almost, is that too cloudy almost? Like I don't know if it.
With Devolver sponsoring this thing,
Yeah, I don't know.
Anything's
I don't know if they
possible.
send it out there. Yeah, the
Even if it's
in-person kind
hands-off,
of makes
you know?
it interesting. Yeah, and it's not like a game event, so it's like who's gonna how many. It'll be interesting to see what they come up with because it is like that financial challenge of like, well, you got to show up, and then how much juice you're even gonna get out of this orange. Like first one out the door always gets shot. So I don't know. I think whatever they come up with will be a good selection. I'm just not sure what. There's just a lot of challenges to I think getting this going, but it is a very
Yeah.
cool collab that they're doing.
yeah. At the end of the day, I mean, it's Day of the Devs. I trust their
Oh, yeah,
like
they're gonna-
selection
yeah, have
process.
some
Like
good
they never fail to have a banger lineup at any of their shows. So I'm really what'd you say, Jill? 12 games?
12 games it says.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm excited to see that list at the, I'd assume, end of August to see what that looks like.
somewhere around there. It's
Yeah.
gonna be really good. And
I'm glad well, all of us, I'm glad we have an excuse to apply for media badges for Fantastic Fest. I've always wanted to go to a Fantastic Fest, so not this year. I'll be in Chicago, but
yeah. No, that doesn't. No. Okay. No, sorry. I was
Wait, are we in
thinking that
Chicago
it-
at the same time? Let me see when I'm
I
going.
was thinking there was an
Are
event
we?
going on.
I
right there.
think
Yeah,
it
why are
crosses
you
over
going?
TwitchCon, unfortunately, if I'm
Let
looking.
me see.
Janet, I'll be in Chicago September 18th to that Monday.
Oh my God, we just missed these shifts
we?
passing in the night. I leave on the 18th.
Damn.
I'm there like the 13th to the 18th, like a Friday to Wednesday.
Mm.
Extend your stay. Come to Riot Fest. Come see Public Enemy.
Oh man, I forgot it was Riot Fest. Okay, Riot Fest is okay. That's nice that I'm out of. Even though Riot Fest, it's like it's sequestered, so it wasn't gonna be.
They moved it now.
Where is it now?
SeatGeek Stadium.
Oh, okay. It's still like in a little. Unless it was like in Grant Park or something, I'm like that's fine.
Oh yeah. No.
Well, I'm bummed that I missed seeing you. Well, anyway, is there anything that isn't me and Mike's travel itinerary? That has nothing to do
This
with
is
games,
the two
but-
halves of the brain cells communicating
Yeah.
with one another.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, me and Isaiah do that when we like sync up minds. I go, yeah. So it's something about me that no one needed to know, but it's out there now.
We all needed to know. Speaking of things everyone needs to know, July's Indie Selects, Xbox Indie Selects is out. Thanks to Janet for catching this.
They're gonna say thanks to Janet for publishing it.
Yeah, I made
Thanks
these
to Janet for
games.
making every game on the list and,
And if you don't
founding
like
Xbox.
my game, maybe you don't understand what I was going for. Okay.
So let's talk Umbrella for a minute. Indie Select, we talked about it when this concept first came out. How do we feel like this is going so far? Because for anybody who doesn't remember, this is essentially the Idea at Xbox team getting together, handpicking a bunch of games for that month that are indie games, which are not on Game Pass, for people to kind of highlight for people. And that's really all this is. It doesn't come with a whole lot of fanfare. It's a post that you can check out, which I'll put in the doobly doo below. But yeah, they have 6 this month, and they include Darkest Dungeon, Lifeless Moon, Playtime Poppy Chapter 1,
Classic.
Times in Galaxy, Rusted Moss. I don't know if I can say that. Nulhelbeck's Dungeon Master. Deadling. No, that's it. That was 6. So overall, what do y'all think about this initiative? How's it going?
Aside from the one time we brought it up 6 months ago, this is the second time I've seen it. To be quite honest.
Yeah. Which I really just came across it like in happenstance. And that doesn't mean that they're not, I think the fact that they are doing this is cool.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do think it's a little, going back to our original conversation, it did feel weird at the time. Like, I think we all acknowledge the mixed bag of like having these not be Game Pass games where it's like, well, what are the odds someone's going to like, oh, like Xbox news.xbox.com recommended it? I'm going, and that's no offense. Like, it's hard to, Recs alone don't carry necessary weight in the same way. And then it's like also kind of just from a corporation. Like, it's not like I'm sure they do have a team that works on this curation, but because it's a faceless kind of thing, I think it becomes difficult. I think if they had, and again, we've seen corporations historically, kind of in a way, I wouldn't say starting with Nintendo, but and everyone that does like their unique personality stuff like doesn't do that anymore. Like PlayStation doesn't really rock with stuff as much anymore. Nintendo definitely is like, hey, what if we don't have people blow up and then leave? Like, I don't want to see y'all eat without me for whatever reason. And I think like a lot of that, Xbox is probably one of the last ones that have some semblance of personality, but then they also kind of take it too far where their streams are like super 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 long, but they still have a little bit of that zest. I think this series needs more personality zest. Like, I'd love to know like a little team of people that have their own like gaming archetypes, like if we did it, for instance, I am available. If we did it, like, Mike's the horror freak, right? So we know, okay, Mike's pick's gonna be like something.
Thanks, Janet.
Something fucked up, right? And it's like
said with so much love.
Exactly. It's like, oh, okay. And then people could you could have that and have an angle. I think one of the struggles with this is that it is very much like a shotgun blast of titles.
Yeah.
That being said, I think this July list, it's got a little bit of heat to it. Like Rusted Moss is a game that I never played to completion, but I really adored that game. I felt like I didn't get nearly enough love, barely any
Agreed.
attention from what I saw.
Yeah.
So seeing them hit with some of those, Times in Galaxy is another one I've been meaning to get to. So I feel like they have a couple things that I like recognize, and I know they're pretty good. They have a couple of things that I personally missed, like Lifeless Moon. I'm just not caught up on what that game is, but it's like, oh, cool, you're pulling something that I didn't have off the top of mind. And then they do have, honestly, like Poppy Playtime is kind of like the pop hit of the titles. It's like the very trendy for kids that grew up on FNAF and are only like 2 years older than when they found FNAF. Like, it's in that kind of viral horror angle, which I don't mean that to sound as disparaging as it does, but it is kind of, I don't know. It, to me, when I think curation, I want you to serve up the stuff that maybe we missed. And I feel like we kind of know about Poppy. Like, I don't think Poppy needed the rollout as much as maybe somebody else might. Yeah,
I
so
think
that's kind of my
there's-
reaction to this.
Yeah, there's also a slight business political
Oh, yeah.
pick
That's another
here
thing, too.
with especially with Darkest Dungeon 2. Darkest Dungeon 2 has been out for a while. But it is coming out on PlayStation and Switch. It just came out on PlayStation and Switch on the 15th. So it is reminding people as they are jumping into the PlayStation version, the Switch version, that it is also on Xbox, and you
Yeah.
guys should be checking this one out as well. So that's an interesting way to be using this list as well. They are
Yeah.
keeping an eye on that. And Darkest Dungeon 2 is a great game. Y'all should go play it if you haven't
Because how
already.
many indies is this again? Is it 5 or is it 6?
It's 6, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's like that question of is this 6 indies that you want me to highlight, or are they 6 indies you want to sell me? Which, like, it's kind of the same difference, right? Like, you buy games, but I do think, I wonder how much of this is like a curatorial lens and how much of this is, hey, you know what, we kind of need you to put in the blog, like these titles during this date, and then you're kind of like lining stuff up in that way,
Yeah. And even as a writer, it's like what's the most relevant right now usually comes into
Mhm.
play as well, and that would make it a relevant thing to put on here. Like it's just interesting, like you said, it is a sort of shotgun effect because it's not new and exciting in things that are coming out necessarily. Lifeless Moon came out some time ago and I've done preview for it and I do enjoy that game. It is a special kind of game for a special kind of person. Um, but it's not new and hip and the things that are coming out, you know? Like we've had some recent games that are really hitting.
I
Well,
did
I
Mighty
think
I
for
did just
oh,
double check. Lifeless Moon did just come out on Xbox like 2 weeks ago.
just on Xbox.
Mm,
Okay.
okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I think for me, I'm personally less concerned with whether or not like these lists are the latest and greatest games. I think it's really cool to bring up titles that maybe have like fallen to sort of this backlog status or like have been maybe forgotten, but like people should definitely check out. But I think my biggest thing with curation is there has to be some sort of purpose, whether it is like specific people that you get to know and trust and you want their recommendations. Like I think we like Nicole Carpenter is one great example that we've referenced many times where it's like we know Nicole's vibe, we know what Nicole likes, what Nicole doesn't really vibe with, and like we will go to Nicole because we know and trust that type of opinion. And so I think either like having guest spots or letting us get to know the curatorial team a little bit more, or if they really do want to keep it a bit more faceless, which I can understand from the corporation point of view, even though I think it's really nice to have the faces. I think having much more specific themes, like I read the headline cool indie games that deserve yeah, you deserve for your hot gamer summer. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to be a scattershot of genres, but like something that has to do with like, I don't know, cool
Summer,
biomes or
Mhm.
summer or like
Mhm.
something that ties in.
snow.
And so
Like
I
hotness, like just anything.
yeah, games with fire. I don't know. And so it's like
Like
I
romance games, like something
Hot
that feel
people, yeah.
yeah, so I think this is like
Yeah, people's
again
a good one.
yeah, a net good. I think this is great. I love that they're doing it. I think just more specificity and like more of that purpose because again, curation means you are intentionally selecting things, you're intentionally leaving things out. So just getting a bit more specific, I think, is what I would love to see. But I think this is great. Also, Rusted Moss definitely deserves more hype.
Yeah. Um, Jenny, I'm going to have you talk a little bit more because you
Okay.
did bring up the SAG-AFTRA video game strike.
Yeah.
Um, so go ahead and dive into what is happening. It is not indie specific, but it is something that is going to affect and ripple through all of the industry. So
Yeah.
hit us with a little bit of knowledge.
Sure. So this may sound familiar because this happened last year. SAG-AFTRA was on strike with the Hollywood actors, like more of the movie side of things. This is now happening specifically for video game actors. Right now, they are just authorizing, I think, some of their first picketing sort of. I don't know what you call them, meetups or like moments where they're actually going to go and start picketing. But the purpose of this is to secure rights for people who work in video game acting. So this is your voiceover folks, your mocap folks, people who help like embody the characters as you know and love them. So what they're trying to work for and aim for is pay increases, mandatory breaks, like medics and AI protections. And so really it's a lot of these basic workers' rights. And then the biggest headline is the AI protections, because as we have all seen in the news, AI is something that a lot of game companies are experimenting with, they're exploring using, and this poses a risk to the rights of any actor, video game or not, because their likeness may be used in ways that they don't either approve of, know of, or appreciate. So, at this point in time, there are a lot of games in production, a lot of games potentially affected. Some of the big companies that you probably have heard before in different strike efforts include like Activision, Disney, EA, Insomnia. VoiceWorks, WB. So these are like the big companies, but they're not the only companies that are going to be included. Um, at this point in time, there are some video games that have been approved for like interim agreements so they can like continue to work. Some others are probably going to be struck. I think one of the big ones, GTA 6 was one that may be impacted the most, or at least is the most visibly impacted. But as consumers right now, we're not being asked, if you're wanting to support the strike, which I personally am all for, you are not being asked to strike and not like stop playing video games. Currently, it's just, hey, if you can vocally support the people who are doing this work, if you can retweet, amplify, that's really what they're looking for at this point in time. They're not looking for people to stop playing games. So yeah, that's like a big, in a nutshell, summary of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everything else that's happening in the industry right now, we're looking at you, Bungie. It's good to hear that people are fighting back and trying to make things better for themselves. And hopefully that makes things better for everyone in the space. Rising tides raises all boats. I think I got it.
Yeah.
The
One of
boats
the
are
only
trending.
yeah, well, and it's like one of the
Seas are
only things
trendy.
that'll protect us from companies. Oh god.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Sorry. We're all being good here, Mike, for Jenny.
That was Janet's fault for putting that in my mind.
Go ahead, Jenny. I'm sorry.
No, I
so
just-
rudely
I will
interrupted
mute
you.
myself.
Wanted to say I don't know. I think it's just you can't see this and see what's happening with Bungie or what we talked about last week and not like make the connections. We need unions across the industry to make sure that we have workers' rights and protections so that when these layoffs happen, we have stuff in place to protect people. So the dots are all
100%.
connected. We just need to make sure to pay attention.
So pay attention, everybody. And hopefully we can get all those protections in time for our topic of the show, because we have a lot of ideas for indie adaptations. This was inspired by El Paso Elsewhere and the rumors swirling about a film adaptation starring Lakeith Stanfield, which would be amazing. And Janet really is the one who came up with this. So full props to Janet for the topic of the show today.
Did I? I think
I
was it
might
somebody
have
else?
suggested it.
Oh
Yeah.
no!
Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm like-
Jenny.
I think it was somebody
anytime
else for sure.
Smart things come up, it should be Jenny.
It's okay. I'll take the credit.
yeah.
Thank you.
I was like,
Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Mike.
Yeah.
well, this is not my idea. Yeah, Mike. Mike's cat figured it all out. But yeah, Jenny, you had tossed this out just as following that wave of what could be maybe a little bit of a trend happening.
Like the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the ocean, a wave is. Mike, everything
Please
you say is going to
stop.
be subtly just nautical themed at this point.
Oh, God.
Oh, you mean like the Dredge film adaptation that has been confirmed? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, has it been confirmed?
Oh, has it?
Mhm.
Yeah. I
I think
can't wait.
so.
That's going to be really interesting.
fun.
If it
Mhm.
happens, of course, confirmed.
Knock on wood. There have been, of course, video game, TV, and movies, and adaptations still kind of have a bad reputation. When you hear something's being adapted to screen, it's still, for me at least, I sort of go, is it going to be okay? Like, cross my fingers. But reception is getting better and better. I feel like every year we get more and more actually brilliant adaptations of things. I'm thinking about like the Fallout TV show. These like Cuphead's not technically indie; it's as close to indie as you can kind of get. Mario, Detective Pikachu, Sonic, blah blah blah. But we definitely have a lot of bad ones that are more kind of in the past, which I find very interesting. I think some of this might be because people who have been gamers and game enthusiasts their whole lives are starting to come into positions of making things themselves, and they can bring actual knowledge and interest into a project rather than it being like, I guess the kids like Mario, let's make a adaptation about Mario that has nothing to do with it, famously, like the 1980s Mario, I think it was 1980s, is one of the worst adaptations of all time.
I like
And
it.
terrifying. Of
Yeah, they
course you
tried
did,
something,
Mike.
you
Of
know?
course you did.
I have the
If you want a
steelbook
Mario
of
movie
it.
that has nothing to do about Mario, you could watch the Mario movie that came out.
There's Italians in that
It was
movie.
nice to look at.
There were
It was nice to look
Italians in
at.
that movie. Okay. You
But
know,
yeah, it's funny that
Sorry, one Italian.
there is that kind of a uphill battle against the the negative connotation with like video game adaptation specifically, but I feel like what we go through where we like constantly have kind of a higher level of scrutiny for video game adaptations. I feel like the book people are like, am I a joke to you? They've been living this forever because that also is like its own form of drama, right? Like the book versus the movie, which one's better? Oh, you watched the movie. No, you got to read the book. The book's so much better. So I think this is our own version of that, and they're also a bigger media jump because it's like just a more different text. Well, at least a book, it's like, okay, that's like written. It's kind of like a script, and there's like dialogue and stuff in games, but so much of video games is also like in part a partially authored experience. Whether it's like how do you make the jumps in Mario, or like how you even break up how you consume it. So it takes like a keen eye to be able to somehow figure out what to take, what to leave, to make it not just in honor of what it is, but also fun in its own right for people who don't know the source material.
yeah, 100%. I think Janet leads into a really good topic of what does it take to make a good video game adaptation? And it's sort of a weird back and forth of all of us. We were all trying to figure out like what indie games would best be, for the screen. And it's like, is it good to stay super faithful? Because I know The Last of Us, a lot of people have absolutely loved, but some people have talked about how it is so faithful to what's happened, even like shot to shot, that it's like, what's the point of watching the TV show if you can play the game?
I think
Um,
that's with Last of Us in particular. That's where you get into things like the Bill and Frank episode, and we'll
Yeah.
stay spoiler light, but like that's something that relationship was teased, or I guess like hinted at, sort of in the game. You don't
If you
really
read
get
the
to
right
see it.
napkin, you
Yeah,
got
like
the answers.
yeah, like they took a napkin note and turned it into like a full fledged narrative arc that was like
Yeah.
an hour long, which is fantastic. Same goes with the oh my god, the other big notes in the game that like you only read that thread through the notes when they're going through like the preschool and stuff, which granted didn't really get expanded out in the show too much, but at least you get to kind of live and breathe that world a little bit. I keep wanting to say Isaiah, but it's not Isaiah. Anyways, but yeah, I think faithfulness and breaking away from that faithfulness that's probably the best example of that, of where you could take a note from a game and expound on it, and yeah, just make it even more grounded, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I feel like when I look for what makes a good adaptation for me is it allows me to feel like I've seen a perspective of the game or
Yeah.
the media that I hadn't seen before, because I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily need it to be shot for shot identical or faithful, but I want to be able to understand it and have new context to bring that wouldn't have been able to be provided in, for example, the game, or that they didn't have the opportunity to share, that now this gives them the opportunity to share. So I think I want it to be faithful to the themes and to like the core messaging, but I don't need it to be like a recreation. In fact, I don't want it to be a recreation, because otherwise I just play the game.
Right. And I think really any game could be adapted is not a word. but I'm gonna-
Adapted.
Adapted. Thank
Adaptated.
you. Adaptated. If you use those parameters, but it is difficult if you move too far away. But yeah, I want to.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the last note I'll drop is like it's kind of about respect, right? Like just respecting the source material. Like it doesn't need to be a 1-for-1 remake, but if I may reference 2023 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Award winner for favorite movie, Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
How many times did you vote
that
in that,
ready?
Mike?
Closing all the tabs for that research. Like the whole like the final third of that movie, as a diehard Sonic fan, like is a dream come true, because it is like an interpretation of Sonic 2, the video game final boss battle. It's like the Death Egg fight with Giant Eggman and the giant robot, and like all the characters coming together. It's like a blend of the core conflict in Sonic 2, but also mixing elements of Sonic Heroes with the 3 protagonists teaming up together to fight them, and obviously all like the little nods and Easter eggs, and that worked for me, where it wasn't a one for one, shot for shot remake of what the games are doing, but clearly the writers, Jeff Flower, the director, respects the source material and understand what makes a good Sonic story and like what the fans want to see.
This isn't a video game, but I actually am thinking of pirate anime, One Piece.
Pirate anime,
It's like
yes.
pirate anime. Okay, so I have tried reading One Piece, and the manga is something that just does not sit. Like, I just never got into it. But the adaptation that they did on Netflix was so wonderful and good, and I know for sure it's not like a one-to-one, but they just took these like core moments, and I think that ability to kind of go back to curate like what are those high points and those Easter eggs that the fans will appreciate, but then also I think I forget it was Mike or Jan who said it, but making it so that fresh audiences can appreciate it. Like I was not an audience for One Piece. I became a One Piece fan through that show because they adjusted it to be acceptable to me, whereas the manga was just not hidden for whatever reason.
And it's making it approachable for people who are not familiar with the source material.
Yeah.
Who are not even familiar, in fact, with like anime in this case, but like, like video games in general.
Listen,
like
on December 20th, some audience who are not familiar with the source material, they're going to get to see a little girl get shot on screen. Delving into the lore. That's why Shadow the Hedgehog has a beef against humanity, because the cops shot his best friend Maria.
This is gonna be a dark movie. Everybody, prepare yourself.
A children's film. A Nickelodeon Kid Choice winner.
Is this real? I've never seen.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about Last of Us at first.
No, Maria got shot by the cops.
I'm like, the government killed Sarah. Everyone needs to remember that.
That's how this man gets so angry.
Oh my gosh.
With all of that very important lore in mind, let's jump into what we would like to see adapted. And I'm going to make this into a competition because I try to at every point, and everyone tries to frustrate me with it, but I'm going to see if it happens. And we will go around and talk about what we would like to be adapted and make our top 3. All of us are going to agree on a top 3. So, Janet, what's on your list for adaptation?
Sure, I'll just go in order, even though part of me is like, do I even want this in there? Because I do. So I have What Remains of Edith Finch. And the reason I picked it is because I guess the theme of mine is sort of like vignettes and moments and things that you can go through quickly or kind of delve deeper on, like to the point of the Last of Us comparison, right? Like that, the episode with Billstown was like the best episode in that season and one of the best episodes of TV, I would argue, of like that time. It was really incredible. And I think it's also what made the rest of the season kind of feel like meh. It's like, okay, you're not bad, but you're not like at that level. Like I thought you were about to like cook, and then it's like, we kind of already ate, I guess. And then now we're just finishing it off. I think What Remains of Edith Finch has, for those who don't know, it's a walking simulator. Really fantastic game if you haven't played it yet. But it's very like magical realism, and you're kind of exploring this house, and in that exploration, you sort of get windows into the lives of this family throughout time. So maybe you look at, I'm making it up, like your uncle's room, and then you start thinking about like the life that he had, and then boom, you're like seeing it, and as the player you get to sort of to a degree play within it as different characters in a sense. Really, really cool stuff. And I think they could, because of like the options you have in filmmaking and television, I think they could do some really fun stuff with like the angle of magical realism. I think they could also do, they could switch it up and zag and do like different family members that like you didn't experience in the game where it's like a new thing. They could do like funny stuff that kind of also veers off of what you experience in the game. So like one of the parts of the game is that you can become a cat, which frankly it's kind of like the worst part of the game because the cat doesn't control well. But like what if they took that and they did something like funky with it, right? Or like what if they spent more time in getting to know like who the brother at the fish cannery was, you know? And I do think part of what makes What Remains of Edith Finch exciting is the ways they play with who you are as the player. But I do think there's always something fun to be done with unconventional narrative structure and sort of changing perspectives. And I think What Remains of Edith Finch invites that a lot. And again, you could even do like a spin-off that doesn't have that same family, but it's a different one and it's like super new. And I think that stuff has really nice slices that you could do to make that experience of this family like its own little season, and kind of almost like True Detective where True Detective is the seasons essentially standalone. Like there's a little bit of like a tiny through line, but it's like these are just different detectives in different like areas, so they can even take like that angle with it and kind of go through different families and history and all of that. So yeah, I would definitely watch it. I think there's a lot of like magic and fun also in that game.
Yeah.
And darkness.
I think Walking Sim is such like a really good reach for like a TV show or a video game or a movie, because it is so already in that vein. Like I think what's going to be the hardest of some of these is trying to figure out how much, if any, the mechanics of a game need to be involved. And when you don't have a lot of that to worry about, I think that makes it easier to make into a visual medium. But yeah.
I'm sorry, did you not like when they went first person on Carl Urban during the film Doom starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
Loved it.
Hell yeah, I know you did.
Janet, hit us up with the rest of yours.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I have also Mothman 1966 /
Hell
that
yeah.
like, was it Pixel Pup series kind of there? I don't know if they
Pixel
Sure.
Pulp. New one got
Pulp,
announced.
yeah.
What
Yeah,
was the new
like
one?
Grizzly Man.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Grizzly Man. Hell yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm still
Oh.
so behind on these. I gotta catch up. But it's a series of games that have like this old school PC graphic art style. I think these are easy, quick little like campy stories that you could pull out, because that's kind of what the game anthology is like, where you have this aspect of relationship building that's really fascinating, where you can see like, you know, in like Mothman, it's like a dynamic between, I think, like two teenagers, and they're having like relationship drama or something, and then like somebody also works at one point like a convenience store, and then you have this supernatural thing happen and people have to come together. You know, I think we're kind of always ready for that as an audience, right? You think of like 80s horror, but you also think in the modern era, like Stranger Things and how much that pulls from previous horror stuff. I also think you could light cheat a little bit, and I wonder how many of these would be fun as also interactive shows, because like this is like a game that it's not super choice based, but you get to make like dialogue options and like do sim stuff. Like I think about, you know, there's not much separating Black Mirror's Bandersnatch from being a game. It just wasn't labeled a game, so it's like not a game, but you select things like it's like that's not a game, but like not Bandersnatch. What is the one I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of Late Shift. Like oh, that's a game, but like they look exactly the same. So some of this is kind of semantics. I do think one thing that could be kind of fun, because it's interesting. Like with TV, I feel like it's really is just about having fun if you are presented with an interactivity layer. But with a game, I think there is that angle of like, well, we're having fun, but we also like want to complete it or like get certain achievements. And I think TV choice driven shows really invite like a genuine engagement and curiosity that you don't really get when you have a game, because you're like game pilled, you know, you're like, and now Google secret ending. And for like something like Bandersnatch, it's so like classic fun for the family. So I do think you could like either put Mothman as its own campy thing, or you can invoke some of that choice driven stuff and sort of like have it only like 1 foot into TV, 1 foot into games.
I really imagined Mothman the creature looking down camera and being like, fun for the whole family.
Yeah, I mean he's just like he's just a lad. He's a big lad. He's just a big scary lad. And then my last one is
big lad of the year nominee potentially.
Okay.
Oh, we'll see. I'm so excited for this year's categories, and then
Yeah,
also trying to
it's
figure out
gonna
who
be
gets the Chance the Rapper award. Yeah, I gotta start keeping an eye out for those because they're really specific. And then my last one is also in that horror vein. Like I think this would be harder to do because you would need either one studio that has multiple games, which like technically the Mothman team has that, but or separate deals with various studios, which sounds very expensive. So I'm guessing this wouldn't happen. But I would love to see a horror anthology series that's in the vein of Love, Death, and Robots, where everything's really short, but they're all different, they're all interesting, and they're all like little thinkers. It's like, oh, yeah, that's interesting. Well, that was wild. Like, you know, you kind of have such a strong reaction. They're all such different flavors. And I feel like the titular one, like the one to launch it, would be Click Golding, the short film. And it's like, you know, a couple minutes long. And I think, because that's so much to what I felt having finished the game, spoilers for what we've been playing. Like, I beat it finally, which is embarrassing that I didn't the first time because it's really short. But it took me like an hour to play it for some reason because I was walking around the room and being dumb. But that game, as much as it's very interesting, I kind of left it and I'm like, hey, yeah, that was cool. Like, but it didn't quite fully bang. And I think as a show, anthology shows allow for them to be small and interesting and experimental and in conversation with other pieces, and that the sum of its parts ends up being the juice, you know? It's like, and you can kind of jump around. And then I know like Love, Death, and Robots 2 had this thing where they presented the episodes in different orders to different people, like, which is wild. So yeah, I think Click Golding fits in that vein where I think of that game again as like a good short story, where when I finish a short story, it doesn't have the impact of like a book or a novella, but it can often like sit with me, make me think, be an interesting experiment. And I think Click Golding checks all those boxes and will be great in like the video game edition of Love, Death, and Robots with featuring Click Golding. Yeah.
I love it.
Random game recommendation for anyone who's like, I would love a video game anthology. Do y'all remember it was like Cartomancy anthology, the tarot card it was like a tarot card kickstarted game anthology where a bunch of devs got together and basically each dev, like mini dev team, got a tarot card and they made a game like based on the card. And so you can get this game.
so cool.
That is
Yeah,
so
and you
cool.
can like pull a card and that's the game that you get to play. So if you're looking for like, because I love anthology, like I think this idea, I don't know, sorry about the competition. I'm like, I love this idea and I would want to vote for it for a horror game show anthology. But like if you want a game version of that, I think it's called Cartomancy Anthology or something like
that's
that.
what comes up on Steam. Also, this is a deep cut. Like, shout out to you for the deep cut. They only has 13 reviews right now. Like, this is
Dang.
this is a specific. It came out a while ago too. So sorry if you're listening to the game and you're like, yeah, I know. That's really rad. It also kind of, gosh, now I'm thinking of what the other. It's not quite like necessarily an anthology, but that does also remind me of the what's that indie game coming out that is
UFO 50.
Yes, thank you. Also, so much of this show is just like, what's the one? It's the guy that has the pants, and then someone's like, "Oh, Pants McPants," and I'm like, "Oh, that's the one." Yeah.
One of our
UFO
episodes
50.
is just going to be charades at some point.
UFO 50 is kind of, you know, in that vein of collaborative collection, kind of quick hits as well. But yeah, those are mine.
Yeah, I'm going to challenge anybody listening or watching to go try Cartomancy Anthology and leave a review because they need more reviews. It's like 100% positive at this point, but
well,
83%.
To be clear, you don't have to tank what they have. Like, it kind of has the implication of like, yeah, 100% positive. Like, let's get this rounded out. But yeah, it looks like a really cool idea. So there you go.
Jenny, what games would you hit up for your entries into this competition?
So I keep talking about 1,000 Times Resist, but I genuinely think this game is life-changing. I think it is so good, and I would love to see it as a film or like a limited series, like a 10 episode or 11 episode arc limited series. For folks who have not heard me talk about the game already, this is a sci-fi, I would say like, I guess the closest genre is maybe like walking sim sci-fi. A lot of the game is you going to talk to characters, jumping into different sort of scenes, I guess for lack of a better word, and you're in a world where an alien invasion has spread this disease. You are a clone in sort of the society of clones because of one girl who survived this alien invasion and the disease. And that's like all I'll give for now, because the joy is in the discovery. It's one of the best games out there. I love series and shows that keep me on the edge of my seat and getting me theorizing. And I felt like this
Mhm.
game already narratively at the end of every chapter, I was just like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And I had so many theories and it was incredibly fun. It was like watching Severance. If any of you like watch Severance, it was
Mhm.
like playing that
Wow.
game felt like watching Severance, but I was like in the guiding seat. I think they could do some incredible innovative things because the team has a background in like music composition, theater, dance, and I think film. And so with the team's knowledge of these other mediums, I would love to see if they could reimagine the game as something much more passively, I guess, experienced, but perhaps provide new context with. And yeah, I just think it's so cool. And I was actually considering, because there is a choice element to this game, particularly closer to the end. And I was thinking, actually, to reference Bandersnatch again, it could be fun or interesting to have either a director's cut or still provide that moment of interactivity for an audience after watching what would they pick. I
Mhm.
think that would be so powerful and cool. So that was my first one, A Thousand Times Resist. My second is Stardew Valley, because I think the
Mm.
potential for drama and like character moments is so huge. Like, if you get deep into the lore of the stories of the townspeople, there is a
Which of
lot.
course we do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a lot to work with. And so I was thinking it'd be interesting to have a farmer character that you put in, but also I think it would be wild to have like a prequel series where you are
Mm.
in the town at the
Yeah.
advent or arrival of Joja Mart. I think that would be so fascinating.
Mhm.
And just to see some of these character dynamics that maybe has been hinted at, but you didn't get to see. I don't know. I see it as almost like a farm. It's farm is not a period, but I almost see it like a farm period drama
Uh-huh.
with
I
lots of
mean, this is the
romance.
one on your list that I was the most intrigued by
Yeah.
because I intentionally did not put this on my list
Mhm.
because of the way the game is so mechanically driven
Mhm.
that it's like that's a lot of what you fall in love with this game.
Mhm.
But hearing you kind of talk about what that, especially the like arrival of Jojo Mart,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
that's
it
a
would be
cool
so
idea.
fun. Like, I
Plus, there
just
are really good themes here of like what we're dealing with right now, of like
The
companies
Bezos
not
cats,
treating
yeah.
you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bezos cats are everywhere.
Everyone's kind of dream of going off and living on a farm.
Yeah, I think the drama and the character moments could be so good. You could have like a specific episode for the mayor and like what's going on with Marnie and like all just it'd be so good. Um A Space for the Unbound, I see as another
That's
perhaps
a
more
good one.
limited series. Basically, A Space for the Unbound is it is a narrative game that is about two like high school sweethearts at the end of days, at the end of their school days and the end of the world. So there's like a dual sort of urgency there. Um,
I love how you went to go on as if you were like correcting, like, it's not the end of the world like you
yeah,
were thinking. And you're like, but it is
but
the
it
end of the
actually
world.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
now that I think about it. This game I think could do really beautifully as an anime. Like if they set it in
Yeah.
some sort of like a Your Name kind of situation. I think that'd be so
Mm.
beautiful.
Mhm.
I honestly would also love to see this in sort of that K-drama style format. I think the magical realism, the comedy, the sort of little bits of humor that you get, but then like the really deeply sad stuff really resonates in sort of that K-drama format. And I think
Mhm.
this would be perfect for that. And then my last one was Cassette Beasts. I also
Mm.
see this as maybe an anime or live action, but I think anime may resonate a little bit cooler with the transformation aspect. For folks who don't know, Cassette Beasts is like basically an turn-based open world sort of RPG where you, instead of collecting Pokemon, collect cassettes to turn into Pokemon-like creatures.
Mhm.
There's eldritch horror. There's some like weird cultish things happening.
A lot of
Lots of
Arthurian Knight lore
yeah,
in there.
lots of like a lot of really cool stuff. And I think this show would be really cool because not only do you have the like main character's arc of you being transported into this weird island where you can turn into cassettes or cassette beasts, but there's also a sort of underlying eldritch horror thread that's like really intriguing. And so it feels almost like a Lost situation where you could probably have maybe hopping different timelines, different characters, different scenes, and lots of cameos. Because in the game, there are so many cameos for like historical characters. It sounds very weird, but there's a lot of historical characters.
A
And I
lot.
feel like you could have so much fun with different cameos of different actors or something if you did a live action version of this.
Yeah.
And it's like 80s. So you got the 80s stuff that people are like really into. So yeah, those are mine.
It's good arguments. Which one would be your number one pitch that you would like to throw out?
Oh my God. That's really hard.
It is.
My number one pitch? I don't know. I think my heart lies with 1,000 Times Resist because I just think everyone needs to access that story somehow. And if it's not through a video game, I want people to access. I'm like acting like this is going to really happen, but
It is. It's 100% going to happen. Anyone
I
is
think
welcome to take these ideas.
1,000 Times Resist, I would love to just like fight for because that game is just too good.
I'm down. I think for mine, my number one pitch. I once I started writing games, I couldn't stop essentially. But the number one game in my head is Hades. I
Mhm.
think that it would be such a cool drama, political intrigue, like slowly kind of a period drama because it's all ancient Greece. And you're kind of slowly figuring out what's happening, and it's got a really amazing story. And I think it has the sort of mainstream attention that would get a lot of people jumping into it just because it's a Hades. And since we're getting a Hades 2, you've got season 2 locked away already. Like I'm ready for it.
Has to be
Do you
live,
picture it,
live action. Has to be no shirts, a lot of skin.
Yeah.
Lot
I
of
was
no-
Everyone's gonna
literally
be so
going to
hot.
say the
So
same
many
thing. I was going to
beautiful
ask the
people.
same
Yeah.
question. I'm like, would this be live actions? There's just a bunch of hot people. Like,
A
Yeah.
lot of hot
A lot of
people
sweat, a
going
lot
on
of
in this
mist,
game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oil.
A lot of happening. But if I to look at other games very quickly, I did think about how amazing it would be to get an Inscription game where you're sort of learning all of those secrets along the way, and it's fearful and scary, and maybe building out the conspiracy a little bit and seeing what's going on with that. And oh, that would be so cool. I'm also really intrigued, and I thought about this, and at first I dismissed it, but I was like, what would happen with a really good adaptation of Doki Doki Literature Club? Like,
Mhm.
I'm honestly surprised that hasn't happened.
I'm sort of really down for it. I also think Night in the Woods would be a really good. I don't know if you like maybe you make it into a live action and make all the characters not animals, which would be
oh, that'd be
unfortunate.
trippy.
Yeah. Or you just make it really what's the Elijah Wood show where he just talks to a
Oh,
dog?
Wilbur?
Will
No.
Wiltz Wolf Walt?
Wally?
Something like that. Um while everyone's looking it up.
Elijah
Just make it
Wood's
really
dog.
Wilfred.
surreal.
Wilfred.
Wilfred.
Oh,
Where
that's
like
so much.
you just don't acknowledge any of the people are just dressed as animals or whatever, and you just continue on with life.
What a great show.
Yes. Darkest Dungeon, I think, would be a really interesting one because it does play with the themes of heroes and mental health, which you
Mhm.
don't see a ton of. Plus, I mean, it could be in the vein of like a Game of Thrones, and you've got all this intrigue with people being lured into a place in order to do a thing that you think is going to be good and turns out might not be, and just you could kill anyone off at any time essentially, and you just start over with a new person, which is something that was so much fun about Game of Thrones when it first came out that I think a lot of people have forgotten
Mm.
because you really didn't know whether or not your character that you loved was going to be there the next week or the week after that. Um, and then I was like, the Banner Saga would be an amazing show to see as well. You've got these characters who are in a fanciful world where like ogres exist and magic exists, but it's all really, really grounded and desperately hopeless almost the entire time. And you're just constantly at the last minute pulling out some sort of amazing turnaround, and your people are okay and they can eat for a second, and then something even worse happens, and it's just a constant like, how are they going to get through this? So yeah, those would be all of my number one picks. I think so far listing everybody's games really shows a lot of our personalities.
And with that being said,
Mike,
Well,
go ahead.
It's 50-50, you know. First on my list, I was considering a short hike produced by Studio Ghibli. I think that would be a wonderful,
be
whether film
amazing.
or short
Cute.
limited series. I think
Mm.
film wise, obviously you could tell the entire thing in one go, but limited series, I would love to see Claire going on her little side quests, her little adventures per episode,
Mhm.
and finale obviously reaching the peak. Yeah, we'll save the fucked up ones for later.
I was like, are you gonna say it? Go ahead.
Next up, Celine Song, who directed my favorite film of last year, Past Lives. If you haven't seen Past
Yes.
Lives, please see
Oh
it.
my
Give her any of the Fami games. When the past comes around, Coffee Talk, After Love EP, she could destroy hearts with that source material.
Mhm.
Please. Now let's get weird. I attach Fede Alvarez, who directed Evil Dead and Alien Romulus, which is coming up. Also did Don't Breathe and Crawl. Those were some of his original projects. Give him Faith the Unholy Trinity. Fede Alvarez has a real fucked up mind and a real fucked up eye. His Evil Dead film is real gnarly. I think he would knock Faith out of the park. By the way, Faith the Unholy Trinity just got a physical edition announced for Switch. It's really cool. Go check it out through Fangamer. And then I am a Robert Eggers sicko, so in my mind I was like, okay, what can Robert Eggers knock out of the park aside from Bloodborne, because we are on an indie game podcast. So of course Robert Eggers, The Witch, The Lighthouse, has Nosferatu coming out later in the year. Same by the way, same week as Sonic 3. It's a big Mike Townsher week that week. Oh, I can't wait. Merry Christmas, y'all. Give him Mundon. Mundon is a really fantastic overlooked folk horror indie that came out probably years ago at this point.
Yeah, something like
probably 2020-ish, I feel like. It is fantastic. I think Eggers would knock that out of the park, and that is probably my number one pick if I have to put one up. It's either that or Fede, but yeah.
Okay, having said all of that, to the competition part, I sort of think we should start with Janet's horror anthology, because Jenny said she would vote for it, and I definitely want to vote for that as well.
Yes.
Okay, so
the end.
That's it. You win.
We did
Yeah,
it.
I won.
Just so much horror.
You will be getting my invoice. Was just like going more on it and then kind of pick it as like the top one, or like how are we doing this?
It's our top. It's our top. It's the horror.
It's over.
Like that's it. It's over.
It's in there.
What I would pick.
Did it right? Yeah.
Because who wants the like the vote for yourself thing? Like it's not that real. Like if I was running for president, I'd vote for myself, I guess. But like that's kind of outside of that. It's like, come on, y'all. Like let's have some fun with it. I'm torn. Also, like Mike, shout out to you having like the directors, I guess, picked out. I'm like, I don't know the names of anybody.
And weirdly
I
enough,
don't know the names of anybody.
A little peek behind the scenes. I did that while we were doing the news. I just
wow.
off the top of
Okay.
my
Well,
head.
negative shout out. To
Yeah.
just during the
Minus
during
points.
the show.
No.
Yeah. So, but positive shout out for being honest about it. So it's like I'm going
Thank
back
you.
and forth, you know.
Yeah.
But I did like that you had all of those. I'm not, I know Coffee Talk and everything, but I did like I want to give a tip of the hat to the Mundon game. And I also add that to now my never-ending Steam wish list. But I think my personal pick, it might be that Stardew Jojo Mart thing. And I know you want, if it can only be 1,000 times resist, I'll go to that too, because it's like
No,
shout out to that the beginning of
Stardew's
that,
fine.
but that's
The
kind of my
Stardew, the pre-Stardew prologue
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, I'm kind of down for that too.
I feel like it could have so many anti-capitalist angles, or it could just be really funny too. Like I don't know what they would do with that. Like I feel there's a lot of directions you can go, and I think that's kind of fun. And to Jill's point on Jenny's idea, I was when I saw this on your list, I'm like, oh, but like, what are we going to be doing? Like just hoeing the soil or whatever. I don't know. I only played like 10 minutes of that game.
We be hoeing that soil, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
you know, like
More than me,
after,
Janet.
once you've hoed one soil, you've hoed them all, you know what I mean? But I was like, what are you going to do like for watching that? And then you like right away had like not just an answer, but like several directions you can go. And I think those all seem really fun.
You could
Concerned
put
Ape, hire me. Let me produce this show.
Ludacris's "I Got Hoes" in different area codes on the soundtrack.
Whoa.
Yes.
It's on there. We're done. Mike, what would you vote for?
I
Not
mean,
yours.
you put Inscription on there. I have to go Inscription.
Oh, that would be a really cool.
Especially
series, I
imagine
think.
like no spoilers for Inscription, but like imagine the granted we are currently in a political downfall, but the additional political spiral if you dig into some of the stuff that's outside of the video game Inscription. Yeah, Inscription.
Oh, I'm scared.
Yeah.
Um,
you dug into
If you are
some of that.
unfamiliar with that stuff, oh my god, it's incredible.
Y-
There are Nazis
Oh,
involved.
Absolutely. Go out and yeah.
I think too, on that note, Jill, I can just steal your Inscription thing for my horror anthology. That's what the horror anthology is just a cheat. It's a cheat code. Just
I
lump it
don't
in
know.
there.
It would have to be a longer thing, I think. For Inscription.
I guess, yeah, probably. I wonder what they. Yeah, I'm curious what the almost fourth wall breaking of that would look like if it was like a TV show. It's like open your blinds. Like I don't know. When you hear spoilers for that game, but then you like kind of forget, like they all like mesh together. I'm like, I don't know. At one point, this thing happens, and I have no idea.
Honestly, they could
how
do
else
something like
the tide's turn.
if you've been watching WWE since WrestleMania, they reintroduced this faction called the Wyatt Six, and from WrestleMania back in April through like up until like maybe few weeks ago, maybe they were flashing QR codes and hiding QR codes on like episodes of Raw and SmackDown, so you could do that, and it would lead you to like weird like found footage,
That would be
creepy
so
like
cool.
snuff videos and. Yeah, and like coded websites and really weird like letters and yeah, you could do something like that. Just hide little subliminal
Yeah, that's
messages
true.
throughout to do the fourth wall breaking.
Yeah, it's a good way to go about it.
As a
Though
counterpoint.
Hot Hades is also kind of fun too.
Hot Hades.
Hot Hades, I mean, yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm like, Hades would be just so.
And then you just act like I just really like Greek mythology. It's like,
Well, sure you do.
Like,
yeah.
Sure you do.
They real hot. Okay,
So no offense to
Jenny,
you, Jill, who
I'm gonna-
actually does study. I'm just there for the literature.
It's actually
All right, Jill.
really, really the last.
All right,
you can
Jill.
go
It's
watch.
fine. You can
You
admit
can go
it.
watch
It's okay.
my. You can watch my playthrough when the playtest was on. I stopped and like looked at every character and kind of like broke down what was happening mythologically and
I
like
also stopped and
adaptation-wise.
looked
Yeah.
So good.
really
Jenny.
closely at every character.
Yeah.
Jenny's like,
For
I
the-
stopped
for
and
the
looked real
articles,
hard at
yeah.
every
Yeah.
character. So Jenny, I'm gonna let you be the tiebreaker here. What goes on our third? What's the third top winning pitch?
I'm a Hades show fan. Because
Okay.
also
Hades, yeah.
it gives me like, you know, back in the day how we had like Xena, Warrior Princess, and it was just like
Yes.
wild. I
Mm.
feel like it would be so fun to have a show that's like action. You've got hotties, like it can get serious, but like you know it's gonna be goofy. I think that would be so much fun to watch.
I'm
Yeah.
super down for it.
I want to see that
Okay.
dog too. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I don't know if we want to go into cast.
Zazzy
But,
beats his
like,
nemesis.
I know
I'm
nobody.
cooked on the cast. I don't know. I'm glad that you have that
I
affliction
know.
because literally, and I forgot to do it. But when I saw that cast was written here, I texted Isaiah, but we forgot to talk about it. I'm like, tell me who should be in here because I don't know. I
It's
don't know
who are
anyone's
the
name.
hottest people.
I know like 3 actors' names. I'm like, does Will Smith fit in any of this? Like, I don't really know. Like, that's one of the 3 people I know.
Okay, so
Janelle
As-
Monáe as Aphrodite.
Oh my gosh.
our
Oh,
top
man.
pitches are horror anthologies starting with clickholding, Stardew Valley, before the farm. I've just decided to title it that.
There
I'm
it is.
glad.
Yeah.
And Hades with hot people.
Yeah.
If you are listening, chat, or not chat, but if anyone who's watching, listening, go to comments right now. Put your cast, put your dream cast for any one
Yeah.
of the
Mhm.
three. Let us know what you are thinking, because I want to know who people are imagining for these different shows. And we'll move on to games that we have been playing. For the first time, I think, ever in the history of the show, all four of us have put the same game
Oh, yeah.
as their first game.
Wow.
Dang.
Congratulations to
We did
everyone.
it.
We win.
We've arranged.
We have all put a ranger, a role puzzling adventure. And now I don't know who to throw it to. So who feels like they would really like to talk about this game? I'm going with Jenny. She just had a really confident look just then.
Yeah. So for folks who haven't heard of it, a ranger role puzzling adventure is a puzzle game about a young girl who's basically going on this journey of self-discovery, trying to figure out who she is. The really cool mechanic to this game is that the entire world is tile based, and as you move, you are actually sliding the tiles either horizontally or vertically. And this not only moves your character, but it also shifts objects around the world. And so a lot of the puzzles turn into how can you manipulate the placement of objects to get certain things done. I have not finished it, so I don't know if any of you all have finished it yet. Okay.
Nope.
I am stuck on the first boss. I don't understand it.
Oh no!
Too dumb.
Mike,
I can see why.
go
No,
look
no,
at my
no. I get why.
footage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get why. Because I only
I
know
got
the answer
this.
because I saw someone else do it in my preview. But I was like, for free answers. It's taking me
Aside
fun with
from
me.
being stuck right now, I think it's like a really fulfilling puzzle game that definitely a great tutorial that like teaches you aspects of the world and how to navigate and like how you
Yeah.
should approach
It's
certain
dumb friendly.
situations. It's very dumb friendly. It's very Janet
Yeah.
and Mike friendly.
Yeah.
We need like a stamp of approval, like
Yeah.
dumb friendly stamp of approval.
Yeah.
I started playing it on my phone via Netflix.
Oh.
Feels
another
great on
Netflix
mobile.
gamer.
It
Yeah, another
actually would
Netflix
work
gamer.
really well. Yeah.
I
I've
had to
been
reset
playing-
Point P because I switched Netflix accounts to Isaiah's one. So, but I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
more Point P for me. You know,
I
have
yeah,
it.
played an hour or so on the Backbone. Feels great. Looks great. Super fun.
That's really cool.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it's also really funny in a way that
Yeah.
is like
Yeah, it's cute.
it's not even just like, it's really funny in a way that's just sort of like off, like you could miss it, like there's a
Mm.
lot of commentary in there, there's a lot of just it's like so dumb, it's so dumb, some of the jokes. I'm just like, I love this so much. And I think there are some moments where they really throw out some nuggets there that it's just like, oh, okay, that's a thing I can think about. But most of the time when I get stuck in that game, it's because I forget that you can wrap around.
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
is that how you do
wraparound
the
was-
boss? You gotta do the
I'm waiting for
wraparound.
but also the boss needs to like populate its weak spot, which
Yeah.
was kind
Yeah.
of confusing to me. Like I didn't find that to be like an intuitive moment for me personally. I'm like, can I not just hit him now? It's like, oh no, like it needs the eye. Which
Mhm.
like I know once you see an eye, you hit it because I played Zelda before, but it's like I didn't see the eye though, and I didn't know the eye would appear. So that probably would have gotten me stuck, but I had seen it before, so I'm like, well, I just move around, and I do think it's a game that lends itself to fiddling into solutions. Like I think what's nice
Mhm.
is like the problem that I have, and Jill, I know you saw this firsthand because you came into my stream when I played the two for the Dungeons of Hinterberg and then a Ranger, and I'm like, oh, I'm trying to think of this, and everyone's like, look again, and I'm like,
Think
I'm
less,
looking.
think less.
I don't. That's the thing. It's not that I don't. I can't think less. I already am. My issue is I become. It's like the thing I always go back to is functional fixedness, which is like a psychology term that basically says that you see an object as having one use and you struggle to see what its other use case can be. And there's like a big example of an experiment they did with like a box of tacks and like a candle, and I forgot what you're supposed to do. But my thing is I get that, but for solutions, I'll decide like, oh, is this a solution? And then like it won't be, and I'll have a really hard time seeing what else could be there without like the pieces I already have and how I imagine the pieces functioning. Like I have a really hard time with that. And I think in a Ranger, what's nice, besides the fact that the puzzles just really aren't that hard, like I can still struggle on them, but I I know when a puzzle's hard, and I know when it's just like is user error, you know.
Yeah.
And I think because you can just fidget around the space, it allows for you to accidentally explore in a way where I struggle to like let go of like, why isn't this working? And people are like, well, just try something else. And it's like, I don't have anything else. Like, all I had was this. So if this doesn't work, I got nothing. And I think a ranger, like, because you can fuss with it, is nice for that because it's kind of an easy way to break out. And then Jill, to your point with the writing and everything, yeah, I think it's very charming. It tonally reminds me a lot of Chicory. I don't think it's gonna hit those narrative heights, but the idea of like cute little pals with different personalities in the town, and they're, you know, they have the little quick dialogue, and sometimes they're really like a little bit emotional, and sometimes it's just like a cute little person talking about, you know, what's going on in their town or what their life is like, and they're kind of quick throwaways, but they're very like heartwarming. Like, that's the vibe I get from the story of a ranger so far. So yeah, I'm also haven't beaten it, but I'm enjoying it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I lied.
I love-
My aha moment is gone. I don't know it. I just tried again.
I'm sorry.
You just gotta move, and then it'll like appear the eye.
Yeah, I
on
got the
back.
eye.
Like,
I keep running into the eye. No, I
okay.
assumed
But
that I
you can-
needed a weapon or something, but I don't know how to get
Well,
the weapon.
You have a weapon.
You have the weapons you need, Mike.
I don't believe
Yeah,
you.
look
have
down
the
at the screen.
weapons
You
you-
have the you have the weapon.
Mike's gonna figure it out. I
You
really
can,
like.
I know you can do this because I did it, even though I did look at the
You
answers.
cheated.
So like, I don't know. I didn't cheat. Like, what am I supposed to
You
cover
had
my
knowledge.
eyes? Like, can you imagine like what an asshole at a preview event? I don't even want to look at your screen because I want to be able to solve it all on my own and say, okay, you're not getting invited back. You know?
Yeah. The second village that you go to in a ranger is all just a big commentary on like social media and the tech world. And I find it so intriguing that they are managing to say all that they are saying with as little as they are saying. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to the art. It
Yeah,
is kind of
Mhm.
post-impressionistic in nature, and you can really miss it because you're so focused on like moving the tiles and moving your character and stuff, and a lot of the art and thus the story of what's happening happens in the background as you're
Mhm.
sort of moving your character around. So yeah, make sure to keep your eye out for that art as well.
I think the
Yeah.
artist is the same artist for Braid, if I'm remembering correctly. So this is
Yes.
like kind of
It
cool
is.
because it's like, you know, sort of indie game, like a cult classic that we're
Mhm.
seeing sort of
Yeah.
come back in sort of that way.
Speaking of art, Jenny, you've also been playing Ete.
Yeah. I don't know if it's Ete or Ete, so sorry for anyone like who
I'm gonna
speaks
say
French.
Ete.
Ete.
Apologize.
Yeah, so Ete is a basically like a fill the world with color game. So you are a painter who is now living in Montreal for the summer. And as you explore, the world starts in like there's a fog over it. It's in black and white or like grayscale, I would say, and there's a big fog. You can't see like your hand in front of you. As you explore, you collect bubbles that are little bits of color and you paint the world with those bubbles. And as you paint the world, it illuminates and you get to see more of the city. And ostensibly, the city comes to life as you continue to get to know it. I think this is a really lovely game. I love games that allow you to focus in on a task. It's very power wash simulator adjacent. So if you like games that you can kind of zone out, see something like whether it's getting clean or fill with color, this is that kind of game. But what I really appreciated is it kind of mirrors that feeling of when you're exploring a city for the first time and you're like, oh, I don't really know anything around here, but I'm going to like kind of get familiar with this path to the bakery. And you like get really familiar and that's like filled in for you. And as you explore, more of it becomes familiar and it becomes like, oh, this is now my neighborhood. This is now my like neck of the woods. And that is mirrored really wonderfully through the mechanic of painting and like coloring in objects. I also really liked that there was more interesting dialogue in the game than I thought there was going to be. I went in thinking, great, we're going to be able to paint. We have a canvas. We'll make commissions. You know, there's a really cool sort of like ability to take objects that you've painted in the city and put them on the canvas and rotate and create your own works of art. But as you're talking with folks, they are also bringing up really interesting elements that are surprisingly, I would say, complex for a game. of
Mhm.
this nature where you have people talking about the land back movement. In Canada, you have people talking about what does it mean to have community in a space that's becoming sort of this tourist destination. And I was really impressed with the ways they fit like community concerns in this very chill atmosphere. So you're not like losing sort of, it's an idealized place, but it's like you're not losing the realities of it. So again, really lovely. I think it got a little repetitive for me, so I haven't finished it yet, but I think in shorter bursts for me personally, like just to do an area and then like sign out, come back in again, it's like that's the perfect way to play it. So yeah, I am really enjoying my time.
Yeah. Um, every time I play a game that I know Jenny might be playing, I think of how disappointed she will be when if she ever sees me play it because like within the first 15 minutes I was starting a war with my landlady who's like, you know what she did. You know what you did, Marianne. You know. Um, but that is interesting that there is that element of like being exploited and being an artist and my chat and I got into some of like French cultural kind of culture war with like Bonjour High being something that people are warring against because it's like a combination of American English and French and French should be like a pure language and I'm like that is such a cool thing to include in a game that is ostensibly like let me paint this cute bird, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like and there is a lot of that too. So like you get that cool dichotomy in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um so yeah. Jenny, don't go watch that. I apologize.
I'm
Um
excited to watch it.
something that I did watch Janet play and we alluded to that earlier is Dungeons of Hinterberg. How are you feeling
Yeah,
about Dungeons of Hinterberg, Janet?
it's super solid. I do want to go back and continue with it. But I don't know when I'm gonna get back to it. It's lower on my list than a ranger. Like I think a ranger's a bit more of like a polished and tight game. But I just like what they're selling me with Dungeons of Hinterberg, and I've always liked the
Mm.
idea. And I do think to the conversations we've had earlier in the show, like Jill, I feel like they did tighten it up. Like I asked you, like, oh, like is it a little bit tighter than the demo we did? I think back at GDC, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, you feel like the efforts that went in from that point to like now the 1.0 like launch. So yeah, I think with the combat, my caveat there is the combat's like a bit slow. It's not even necessarily that it feels like sluggish because I think everything like you move just like quick enough to handle the enemies. Like it doesn't feel like I'm struggling or I'm really heavy or something. It just feels like everything is a little bit like slower and more casual. But that being said, with the combat, I really love the abilities and I only have a couple of them. I know I'm gonna get more. Like I enjoy like something I really liked about like Breath of the Wild is the idea of the multitude of approaches and how they can carry into combat as well. And this has like that layer to it, and it has a bunch of like little puzzles, which are easy, but
Yeah.
it might take some a little longer, but they're satisfying to do. Like they're very they're environmental puzzles, and I enjoy puzzles like that where I'm tinkering with things. There's like a mine cart in this game early on, which is super fun, and I like the just like all the systems that they're evoking of having these friendship relationships with people in the town and how that'll like have a direct link to certain stats you have and you can like get them gifts and you can do shopping and like I'm really excited to eventually unlock the spa. I don't even know what it does, but I just want to go. I think the only thing that I outside of my combat caveat, the only thing I don't really love is I think in a lot of games kind of fall victim to this that have this, main gameplay and then like also part life sim, like because I'm playing Persona 5 Royal on the non-indie side, and this kind of has that too where like you do the hangout stuff and I'm like looking at it but like I don't always feel like I'm there and doing it. I think Persona does a good job of like sometimes giving you a couple little tasks you can do, but more often than not, like I'm watching Joker try to eat a burger, I'm not involved in that, I'm just watching him do it. And I think this one I'm a little bit bummed that like one of my first hangouts was like, oh, I got ice cream, and then it's like they kind of fade away and they're like, cool, you had the ice cream. And I'm like, can I see the ice cream? Can I pick out the flavor? Like, I really get into the like meaningless choices that are fun to select. Like, I don't really like when you have me choose dialogue and the dialogue's like kind of, it's like yes or sure. It's like, that's the same thing. Like you kind of just wanted me involved just to say I was involved. But I like when stuff feels like I'm filling in a bit of a personal coloring book, and it's like, oh, this is what my character would have or something. And I do feel like that's like a little bit of a missed opportunity here. But other than that, I think it's really, really cool. I think the art style is great, comic booky kind of art style, like that little like I forgot the name for that style, but it has like those little
It's
dots, like
like pop
retro
art.
comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got like a pop art layer to it, and I think they totally nailed the color choice in this game. I think it's so smart. They have that aqua and that purple, and it's throughout the whole game, but it's like just subtle enough where it's like on the jacket. Like I think they did a great job with like the character design and the world design. So yeah, it's like really, it's really quite enjoyable, but it's not, you know, necessarily like I don't know if this will be like in my top list for the year or anything, but I think especially it being on Game Pass, yeah, people should definitely check this out. If you like these kinds of genres, there's not a lot of games that mesh them all together. So I feel like off that alone, I'm like, if you don't suck at this, like I will be there. And Hinterberg is decently above that. Like I think it's a very, very solid construction.
Love it. Mike.
Yeah, so first off, I know what to do in a ranger. I'm still too dumb for it, and I was getting frustrated. I briefly jumped into Flintlock Siege of Dawn. I probably just played like an hour or so, maybe. I was feeling quite under the weather this weekend, so I don't think I was in the mood for something like this. But Flintlock is essentially an action game with Soulsy elements to it, some Souls combat and how you gain experience and whatnot. Has a little bit of flavor of like Far Cry as well, with like some of the taking over or liberating encampments and whatnot. So a lot of cool ideas, a lot of cool elements. So far from what I played, I definitely like I'm at the point now where like, oh, the game clearly like it opens up. I'm like beyond the tutorial stuff. So again, haven't really played the game proper, but initial feel, initial vibe, I like it so far. I'm intrigued to play some more of it. I'm curious if it has the legs to kind of like keep that Soulsy combat and Soulsy gameplay loop feeling fresh, especially with some of the gameplay twists. Because so far from what I played, like, and granted, it's very tutorial. It just felt super linear. So I'm hoping like how it looks like it opened up a little bit. That it definitely gives you some of those opportunities to explore and go off the beaten path a little bit. And I'm not talking using Souls terms, not talking like an Elden Ring, but more of a Bloodborne where like there's a little multiple routes that all kind of like diverge to like one central location, or like your traditional Dark Souls games or even Lies of P. And I'm using these terms. It's definitely not as hardcore or difficult as those games. It's just very much inspired by that kind of gameplay experience loop. Save it, go to a bonfire, level up, get a checkpoint, all that good stuff. But intrigued so far. Pending time, I'll play more of it.
Sounds good. Speaking of time, a lot of things that are on the lists this time around are sort of things that are big names of indies past. I'm very intrigued to figure out why. So, Jenny, why are you playing Firewatch?
Mostly it's a Geeks and Grounds game for this month, and so
Okay.
that's primarily why. But I also thought it would be interesting because it came out in 2016, which is a lot longer in the past than I'd really like to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Almost
But
10 years ago.
Yeah, no, for me,
yes,
that's still 4 years ago.
stop,
Like,
no.
How are you guys celebrating, you know?
Yeah, right. And
By
so-
seeing the Firewatch film, that'll never happen. That was also
Oh my
confirmed.
Oh yeah, right.
But yeah, I was thinking it'd be really cool to revisit a game that is one of those indies that I see folks recommend and talk about a lot, but like I haven't played it in a decade. And I'm curious to see how it's aged and like how I feel about it going in now. So that's what we're playing for Geeks and Grounds for August. And it's a summer game. It's like takes
Yeah.
place in the summer. It kind of makes
Fire.
sense.
Yeah.
Fire.
Fire.
Yeah, it's fire
Summer?
season.
it's fire season.
I
Like, Mike doesn't know what that means, but everyone in California does.
Yeah. I even back in 2016, which also hurts to say, I stand by that game. That game rocks,
Yeah.
and the ending
Mhm.
hit me in such a hard way that I was not expecting. I adore that game from front to back. People were way too harsh on it when it first launched.
What I
so, too.
Oh
love
really? I
is-
thought everyone loved it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
didn't.
feel like
I think a lot of people
everyone
complained about the
loved
ending.
it.
A lot of people
Oh.
loved
That's
it, and then
fair,
we're like,
though,
but then the
okay.
ending.
I think the
sucked.
ending was incredible.
I thought it was. I didn't love it, but I thought it was a very interesting choice, and therefore I liked it.
I don't really like the
I
ending.
genuinely
okay.
don't remember what happened at the ending.
So
That's
we're not gonna
awesome.
spoil it.
We
almost
won't,
like
we won't
yeah,
spoil
it's
it.
almost like
It's
playing
not,
it fresh for the first
yes.
time.
For me, it's not that I didn't like the ending. It's just that I think once some questions got answered, I'm like, oh, that's the answer? All right, I guess. I mean, it's not like I thought the journey was like a lot more interesting than like the climax of the story.
But
And then the
I
falling
think
action, I
that's
was kind of
what's
I
like,
so
think-
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
I think that's what's so interesting is that's the point of like life.
Without like without getting too into it,
Yeah,
like
life
getting
or schmife. If I
Janet's
wasn't
like,
into the ending
"Not
of your
my
game,
life."
I don't yeah,
Getting
I
the-
don't
My
the-
life
know.
is adventure.
getting the rub ripped from under you. I think that's like it's such like a grounded, realistic thing.
Yeah. I loved it.
I guess,
Like-
yeah, like sure. But I mean, either way, even that aside, it's one of those things where for me, and the gap is not this big, but it's kind of like that Resident Evil 8 thing, where it's like Village, everyone loves now. Is it Village? No, what's it called? It's like the house one. What's the house one that they
7.
had? Not Village. It's just 7?
Just 7.
Oh, sure. RE7.
Oh, sure. It
the
was
one with-
Resident Evil 7 Biohazard or
Yeah,
Biohazard 7
right.
Resident
yeah,
Evil.
Yeah, the one with the house and the family and all that.
Banger.
Yeah, that game is like so good that it doesn't matter that no one liked when you're on the boat, And then this gap is not nearly that big, but for me, like, Firewatch is so good. Like, I don't really care that I was like not as interested, kind of by the end in a sense, because it was so. And I played that game only like 2 years ago or something. Like I just missed it when I kind of went back and started getting into walking sims, and then playing it like everyone hypes it up so much, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, like step up to the play Firewatch. Ain't no way you have like the sauce of everybody else. And I'm like, oh my god, it's so saucy. I love that game. The drama is
It's so good.
delicious in that game. Like I was hooting and hollering. It was so good. I love Firewatch.
People also too harsh on the boat stuff in Resi 7. Not that bad. Especially when you
What?
go back after Resi 8. Resi 8 Village trash.
If you want to go
trash.
hand out participation ribbons to everyone's second half of their game, then you go ahead. But
It's like
I love
10
how-
minutes of that game. It's fine.
We started out this episode talking about how Jenny had started a war and she started a second one.
I'm just here causing as much conflict and chaos as possible.
yeah,
Quick,
Yeah,
Jenny,
I'm
go to
gonna
your
eat that
last
episode
game
up,
before
though.
we all
I'm excited.
implode.
Oh yeah, my last game. This is a random one. I actually got recommended. A friend just DM'd me and was like, "Have you checked this out?" And I was like, "I have no idea what it is." I feel like this is maybe a mic joint, probably. It's called Greener
Ooh.
Grass Awaits.
Ooh,
It's
how many
on
how many
itch-
little green freaks are in this game?
Not green, but there are some freaks in this game. So it's on itch.io. It's a golfing horror game.
Oh, let's
Which
fucking go.
Are not things that I would personally put together. I don't like golf, but like horror is not the thing that comes to mind. But basically, you want to go golfing, the course is closed because it's sunset, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. And so you go and you golf in this golf club after dark. And what's really interesting is it's a rough game experience in the sense of like you are not in third person, you're in first person. And so there's these like it feels a little bit awkward and janky, but also it kind of matches the experience of playing golf where you're like having to look down at your feet where the ball is and where the club is, and then you have to like look to where you're trying to hit it and look down. And so it kind of gets that like awkward messiness that I feel like would happen if I played. I've never played golf, so but it's like what I would imagine playing golf is like.
Yeah, this seems like one for what actual golf is.
Yeah, exactly. See, so basically, I am a golf player now.
You are.
And as you play, you start to notice that there is someone following you. And as you are playing, what's incredible is that you first are focusing on like mastering these mechanics. And then once this person shows up, this is like you have to keep your eyes on them. Otherwise, they'll run towards you. And you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want them to run towards me. This is terrifying. But if you look at them too long, they will run towards you. So you have to balance like looking at your ball, looking at them, but then looking away because you don't want to like antagonize them, but then look at them again. Oh my gosh. It just the tension and the panic that it instilled in me was incredible. So I highly encourage folks give this a try. It's like an itch, it's an itch game. So it's like you can just go in, try it. It's not going to cost you, it's like just go in and just give it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
golf
gonna have
horror.
to try this, and I'm gonna be cursing you the whole time. I think.
Yes.
I
Oh
can't
my
wait.
gosh.
Jamie, why'd you make me do this?
Legitimately, I was terrified at a couple points because you're just like panicking. And it's what I love is it's a normal thing that you're doing. You're like, I'm just playing golf. I'm not doing anything that's scary. I'm not in a haunted house.
Mhm.
Nothing like, yeah. I think that's always really fun too, is when a horror game takes something that's so boring
Mhm.
basic like golf and makes
Wow.
it really
All the
intense.
golfers just catching a
I
stray.
know,
I'm very
sorry.
offended by that, actually. I have many
Oh my gosh,
many a
it's
mini
so
golf trophies in my
boring and
past.
golfing. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you and your
love it.
golfing on your Resident Evil boat.
Yeah.
Listen, I beat Ray Romano 1-on-1 in a golf tournament when I was a child.
Wow.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Did you actually?
That is a true story.
That's a true story.
That's a weird
Dang.
fact, Mike fact. Yeah. There's
Mike
also
fact.
there's also I recommend Geese versus Golfers also on itch.io.
Another
cool.
golf horror. Is this a subgenre that's
Golf
like
horror game is coming up. It's like the ocean.
This isn't horror. It's just you have to
Okay.
fight geese off the golf course.
Oh, okay.
This is
Speaking
awesome.
of trending and ocean, Janet, I need to hear about Jason Guppy. Can you tell
Yeah,
me?
I'm playing Lottle Knot, kind of off of a lot of people's recommendations, but I think Jenny put it back on like top of mind. Where I'm like, yeah, I really want to play that. Like Jenny had spoken, fondly about it in the past, and I'm like, yeah, like I should play that. I should play that. But like I don't be playing that stuff. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I should. But how often are you doing what you should be doing? For me, not that often. Like, or that list is so long that like, when you're gonna get to it. And I thought, you know what? Why not have some fun tonight? Instead of queuing up to continue to grind through Rebirth because it's a very long game. I'm like, you know what? What I want to do is play Lottle Knot. And I think I already owned a Little Toe Left because I like kind of, and I also broke my like semi-promise to myself where I'm like, I'm not going to buy any more Steam games. I have a cajillion Steam games. Like I don't need, I could, there's so many games I haven't played and finished that I could play. But I'm like, but what I want is Lottle Knot. So I went over, cards already in the system. I'm like, hey, they don't even ask for the CVV anymore. I'm just like, I'm in. I'm playing it. This game's so good. I like messaged y'all. I feel like this game has healed me psychologically. It's a really cute, sweet game. It's for those who don't know, you're a kind of like underwater astronaut, if that's a thing. Like you go down to the sea, you have your little suit on, and you're on an alien planet. That's all like the planet's just nothing but like ocean and water. And you're just going around, you're cleaning up. Very minimal dialogue or necessarily narrative. You got a little bit of like a, voice in your headset being like, hey, check this place out. Or every now and then there's like a little bit of a tip or directive. But for the most part, what you see is what you get. You're going, you're cleaning up. You got a gun that's like a little bubble gun. So it's like you go bloop bloop, and then it's like, oh, you grab the little soda can. Then you have it in your inventory. They gave you a fat inventory. You got slots for days. You have no want in this game for space for the most part, which is I think really cool. And I'd say for challenge, it's just like monitoring your oxygen, which I like eventually learned that, I can get like bubbles that are just in the water. I don't have to just go through like they give you like a ring that can replenish it, and you can also like buy a ring and like throw your own rings out and stuff like that. But essentially this is just like a game that's very up my alley in terms of sensibilities, but then also executes on the plan, right? It's, hey, do you want to collect a bunch of crap? Yes. Like, do you want to put that crap into a thing that gives you new crap? Yes. Do you want to use that to then buy other stuff? Yeah, absolutely. And then the stuff you get, it's like, oh, now cleaning just got a little sweeter. Like I just unlocked, I haven't used it yet. I'm so excited. It's because you're like a little astronaut looking guy, but I unlocked this thing. I forgot the name of it, but it's like it's like, well, you're not a lot. I guess you're a Lottle Knot, right? Like you're an astronaut for the Lottles. It's a whole thing. There's little creatures called Lottles. But I got this thing where it's like a little car, but it's really just like a big scrub brush, and you can like ride across. It's like a street sweeper for the sea, and you're just like going over. I'm like, I can't. This is so sick. I love this. And then you also like encounter these creatures called Lottles. They're kind of axolotl shaped. They have little goo on them. And then you have to figure out like how to clean them. And then there's like different biomes like across the map. And once you like 100% clean one, or even as you're cleaning it, the thing that I think really makes this game really cool and unique from other cleaning games is often in a cleaning game, when you clean something, cool, it's clean. Like sometimes they do like a sparkle animation or a sound, but it's like the table's empty. The floor is clean. You get like a meter that fills out, like House Flipper 2, has like that kind of mechanic. Here, I like that when you clean, you're seeing like the fruits of your labor in real time. It's like, and now this aquatic tree has leaves once more, and it's like, "Ta-da-da," you know, like, "Oh, okay." And then eventually it's like, fish are here. They haven't been here in years, but they're here because of you. And I'm like, I love these fish. Yeah, like I built this town. Like, it's so fun and so soothing. The art style is also very cute. Not like fully lo-fi, but it's sort of like, it has like, this feels like a game that I would have played like on the GBA or on the GameCube and like loved as a kid. But I'm an adult now and I need to escape. And this is where I'm escaping to. But yeah, it's a very sweet game. It's short too. I think the How Long to Beat's like 4 or 5 hours. But honestly, this is the first game in probably forever, because I'm a sicko for the credits, that I am genuinely saddened by the thought of finishing it. Because I'm like, when the ocean's fully clean, even though that's, would be great in real life, when the ocean's fully clean, what will I scrub? Like, nothing I scrub will be as good as cleaning that ocean floor. Like, it's so fun. It's cute. The sound design is also killer. I wish I had the sound designer's name listed. I don't know if it was also just like the lead dev or how they kind of split that up, but the sound design in this game is superb. Like, playing this game feels like listening to, is it the Bay music from Mario 64? The dun-dun-dun-dun-dun, doo-doo? Like that, the sound, like how my brain feels, that's how it feels when I play Lottle Knot. And if you're a cleaning sicko like me who likes to collect trash, like literal trash, this is your banger game. You are welcome. Take the gift and run with it, because it's so good. I guess I don't really regret not playing it earlier, in the sense that like I'm enjoying it now, but I do wish I played it when it came out November of last year, because I feel like I would have wanted to hype it up more. And unfortunately, the way like a lot of our coverage works for like stuff, it's like, for the most part, it's like, okay, what are you really gonna do with that information? But I also like that we have, shows like this where we can bring up whatever we're playing that happens to be indie, and we're not as like time sensitive as maybe other content is. But yeah, I love this game. And yeah, I named my Lottle Knot Jason Guppy. You can name them. I got another one named like, I don't know, Bean or something. I don't know what I'm naming them. I'm just giving them different names. They have their own little spaces. It's so fun. You can like rip open a trash bag and a bunch of trash falls out of it. Like, it's so good. Anyway, that's the end, because I could go forever. It's really good.
Yeah. Go check that out.
I feel like that's how I
feel like
sound
I need that game.
when I describe Sonic.
Yeah. I don't know if I love anything as much as you like Sonic. Like, of a IP or an object. But Sonic fans like run deep, but then you're like running deeper than everybody else, which is kind of scary. But I love that for you.
Sonic and Star Fox, let's fucking go.
Let's go. For me, I'm gonna close it out with talking about some games that are I think this week. Thank goodness you're here. I think that is out the day.
It's out today.
The day that people are watching this.
Yes.
Sure.
So Mike's correct in that sense. Thank goodness you're here is such a British game. It's so like the first gag of the game essentially is asking you whether or not you need credits to understand the people who are talking, but they don't ask you directly.
Oh my god.
They ask you dialectically. And if you cannot figure out what they're asking you, they give you captions. And finding out that that's what happened when you answered that way was the funniest thing ever. So like, that's how you start a game. It is a very good sign for how the rest of this game goes. It is so inspired by like classic British humor. You've definitely got Monty Python in there. Like, it's double entendres back to back to back. Like, everything in there is essentially some kind of sex joke or other, but it's all like in this bright sunny cartoon world. And since I don't know, like, I'm not British enough to understand a lot of
Are you British at all?
probably
Okay.
or not. Who knows?
Oh man, we're all a little British if you think about it.
That's
Don't
true.
think about it too long. Don't think about it too long.
Don't think
It'll
about it
get
too long.
sad.
Alexander Hamilton.
But like, at one point, one of the characters does that thing where you humorous effect, you like point out the innuendo. But it was like, I'm so glad he did, because I wouldn't have caught it as an innuendo, because I don't understand that is a slang term in English. But you don't have to know all of this stuff to get that this is just, you show up in a place. It is a practice in radical acceptance. You show up in a place and they're like, thank goodness you're here. the meat pies don't have any meat. Go off to the store. And you're like, you've never met me before. I don't know why you think I'm a child. Like, why am I involved in your problems? None of that matters because your character is automatically like, yep, that's what I'm doing. So you run off to the store to to sort of try to help. So it's this sort of like also kind of sweet, genuine authenticness of like, I'm just here to help, sort of situation. So the combination of those two things is just really, really funny.
From what
So,
I played at PAX West last year, definitely big old contender for a little out of the year.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, little out of the year. Also, I want to shout out the star named EOS.
Yeah, how
Um,
is that?
Gorgeous, so
I'm so
gorgeous,
excited
every
to
single
play.
step of it. Um, the first like 3 or 4 puzzles are immaculate. Like absolutely, you do not need to. It is one of those games that makes you feel smart, but is just straightforward. It's got
Nice.
all these puzzles that you can like go through, and you're like, yeah, I
It's
got
like a
that.
photography game? Question mark?
Yes,
Like what's
it
going
is.
on over here?
It's somewhat photography. It's a lot of puzzles. Um, you do take pictures, and some of the pictures, like, you don't really have to, but like they add to background knowledge and all of that. Um, the photography is more tied into narrative and your relationship with your mom, and there's a big mystery about what's happening, and it gets dark, and I wasn't expecting it to get dark. So like that's something to look forward to anybody who wasn't picturing this game going that way. I think the second or maybe last fourth of the game isn't quite as strong. um I think that some more
The
communication
Resident Evil
with
issue, yeah.
yeah, you sort
According
of
to Twitter, I'm winning, by the way, so far.
Well,
oh no.
you know, who wrote it though and how they read it. Like that's what I gotta say.
Yeah,
If you just said is it good or bad, those would also be skewed in my favor, but Jill,
No.
continue.
I think the last fourth you change dramatically the gameplay and sort of how the narrative is delivered. And I'm not sure I was a huge fan of that, but a lot of really cool things going on with this game. So go check it out if you have not. The garden path I jumped into on stream yesterday. Um, and again, it's one of those things where it's like I understand and I don't understand. It's beautiful. It's sort of a jump into like where the wild things are, sort of when I was a child and you read a story and maybe they don't make a lot of sense, but it doesn't matter because you're a child and you're going with it. But it's beautiful and it's got these lovely notes and you feel certain ways, even though maybe you don't know why you feel those ways. The art is it's child storybook art, which also kind of brings that in, but it is a game that you should be playing as just you dip your toes in when you need to wind down for the day. It is really um you're given a big space. I don't know if I would call it an open world game, but you are given a big space and you kind of roam around and you're recording plants and harvesting plants and trying to help other people and trying to get things to trade for other things, to trade for other things. I think some of the systems are very intricate in a way that might push people away.
Mm.
But they instill a sort of intentionality about them. So I understand why they might have wanted to do this because it does make you stop and think about what you're doing. Um, I really like the star system, which I'm still sort of figuring out. But instead of having like a Steam achievement pop up, like you get an in-game star, you unlock it in the sky, and then it has the ability to connect to other stars. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what that means, but you get
Mm.
stars for like you've helped this person, you've brewed your first cup of tea, which of course I did. That was my first star. You've discovered this landmark, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I just want to go around figuring out what stars are. It's one of those games where it's just like I feel like a child. There is no point to this game.
Mhm.
I just want to be here. I just want to be in this world and cuddled up in this environment and enjoying it and taking it at face value, you know?
On that note, like, how do you feel like, not that, I'm a firm believer that not every game needs to be like the greatest game of all time, right? Like, there's gonna be one best game of all time. Everything else is technically below that. So I don't think it needs to be like the best in its genre by any means, but how do you feel it stacks up against other life sim slices? And I know you mentioned like, oh, there's not really, you're kind of just there, like vibing out. But then you did mention there's like these little like quests from people. So I'm looking at the trailer as you're talking, and I'm kind of getting like cozy grow vibes, but then also like more hardcore like sim stuff of like different people coming through on different, like, is there like a day night
There's a day-night
how much,
cycle.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what's the flow like a little bit more?
Weirdly enough, even though there is no mechanical basis for this,
Mhm.
it has the vibes of like a survival game
Yeah, it
in
looked
its
kind of like
day to day.
what's the why do
Don't
I
Starve.
swear it's not a bit. Yes, thank you. Don't Starve. It kind
You're
of, the
welcome.
animation work and the angle of like the forest felt very Don't Starve coded.
So it's like in the same way that a survival game often does not have explicit like you need to do anything
Mm-hmm.
vibes. Like for this game, you don't need to eat, you don't need to do whatever. Like you should keep yourself warm because it changes your tone. And like
Oh,
it's such a
scary.
weird way to think about like how the musicality of your life changes depending on if you are comfortable and in the space and belonging to a
Oh,
space you're in.
okay.
Like it's a really cool concept. Also you sing to fish. That's important.
Okay. Also,
So
Um,
nice.
in general, I feel like you kind of sold me on this game because I glanced at, like, this hit my inbox and I'm like, oh, I don't know, like,
Yeah.
but then I think what you've sort of presented just sounds really intriguing, and I feel like I could use
It's
yet
definitely
another
a
like
game.
of those loops, you know?
Yeah. It is definitely a game that I did not fully comprehend or appreciate until I was in the middle of it. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm getting this and I like being here. So that's where I am with that right now. Uh on a totally different note, I played Devotion, which is
Hell
terrifying.
yeah.
Mm.
So
I
Speaking
did
of
it
film
for a reason.
adaptations,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
that came out a couple years ago.
So everybody keep an eye on the site to figure out why I played Devotion because that's coming up soon. And then again, I just want to shout out Magical Delicacy because that is my every night when I clock off, I am going to my Steam Deck. I don't know if it's Steam Deck verified, but it plays very well.
Good to know.
I'm sitting down and I am cooking and I am like hopping around and I'm collecting new abilities and I'm like, I love this game. Like I am enjoying this game so much right now. So yeah, I can't wait to see where it ends up. And I think that is what we're playing this week. um, that's the end of this week's council. Thank you to everyone who joined us. I hope you found a game that you are interested in playing. We are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The Indie Council has its own socials at Indie Council _ on Twitter, and then everywhere else is at the Indie Council. But this session is closed. Go play some indies.
I'm still winning the poll.